Our Seven Sports motor racing team is at home base in Sydney this weekend as we count down to the start of the 86 Australian Touring Car Championship at Amaroo Park Raceway. The Tin Top crown dates back 27 years, and in that time it's certainly had its ups and downs. The first edition being held at Orange in New South Wales and was duly won by David McKay in his 3.4 Jaguar. Jaguar was the only way to go in the early 60s. Bill Pitt of Queensland took the 61 race before Bob Jane posted back-to-back victories in 62 and 63. Pete Gagan started the fabulous Ford era by winning the 64 title in a Lotus Cortina before Storman Norman Beechey outran the opposition in 65 in his Mustang. Gagan then took 4 titles straight from 66 in his immaculately prepared Mustang, the 69 championship being the first national series as distinct from one-race affairs. Beechey's yellow Monaro bagged the 1970 crown before Bob Jane blitzed the opposition in 71 and 72 with his Chevy Camaro. Alan Moffat won the first of 4 titles in 1973 in a Ford Falcon, while Peter Brock grabbed the 74 series in a Tirana. He was also successful in 78 and in 1980. Colin Bond posted his solitary win for the General in 1975, while privateer Bob Morris outran the Factory Boys to take the 79 series. The only other Triple Crown winner has been Queensland's Sunshine Kid Dick Johnson with wins in 81, 82 and 84, while our first Group A championship was last year. It was won by Jim Richards, unstoppable in the BMW 635. As the curtain goes up today on the 86 title, Gentleman Jim and the JPS crew find themselves under close scrutiny from Peter Brock and John Harvey in the restyle Mobile Commodores. Kiwi King Robbie Francevic is back with the Mark Petch Volvo Turbo. Dick Johnson naturally remains aboard a Ford. And Aubrey Grazier George Fury plans to reap a harvest in the new Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. The 86 series starts today with the Better Brakes 100 here at Amaroo Park. If you like close, hard competition, then stick around for our 10-round coverage on the 7 Network and presented by Goodyear.
Hello and welcome to our telecast. The new season pipe opener here at Amaroo promises to be a classic. The touring car battle has drawn a capacity grid of 26 starters with a lot of new cars and quite a few new drivers. And when the dust had cleared on qualifying, we found one of those new machines, but an old familiar face on pole position. George Fury has qualified quickest in Nissan's Peter Jackson Skyline Turbo at its first competitive appearance, just edging out Robbie Francevic's Volvo, followed by Dick Johnson's Mustang, then the BMW defending champion Jim Richards, and the Commodores of Peter Brock and Graham Bailey. It's going to be quite a race over 52 laps of this demanding 1.9-kilometre Sydney circuit. But the touring car clash is just one of a packed programme of events here this afternoon, and it's time to go racing. Here's Neil Crompton.
And thanks very much, Wilco. Cars on the grid now for the Goodyear Owners Club Series Preliminary. And let's take a look at the way they'll line up. On the front row of the grid, on pole position, Peter Dane, 6604. Alongside him, Andrew Harris. Then we've got Baron Robinson and Mark Scaife on row 2. Steve Williams, Graham Blanche on row 3. Richard Gartner, Ben Ruggles, row 4. David Morton and Garth Downey on 5. The Revs are building the field, about set to go. And away they roar off the line in their first of 5 laps. And it's Peter Dane who makes a sensational start.
Peter Dane running strongly, gets away very quickly indeed. Look at the jockeying for positions back behind. Baron Robinson getting away smartly in 24, sneaks up the inside as they crest the top of Skyline and will now drop into Dunlop for the first time. We saw plenty of action in the series last year, the Goodyear Series, in this particular corner. But for this sprinter race over 5 laps, we managed to get them all through there and they head down the back part of the course towards Mazda Corner. There's your race leader, Peter Dane, car number 41. Fastest qualifier, the 66.04. And he's considerably quicker than Andrew Harris in the Laser and Baron Robinson.
Well, he was the winner of this series last year, Peter Dane, and he looks like he's going to start off the right way again this year.
And didn't we get some great racing in this Goodyear Series last year?
A little biff and barge, wasn't there?
Forever. It's a big series again this year. I think there's 10 rounds and spread across Victoria and New South Wales, Oran Park, Amaroo Park and Calder. And Peter Dane, the man that is the reigning champion, car number 41 in the blue car. And with a quite comfortable gap over his nearest rival in second position, Andrew Harris, the red Laser, as he crosses the start-finish line, end of lap 1, 4 remaining.
Great idea, spreading a series like this around a few different circuits too, I think.
Excellent prize money as well, Wilco. There's $1,500 up for first, and the overall series money is $3,000. It's a great opportunity for younger drivers to get in as we look at Peter Dane.
Well supported also by Chevy at Wheels, Century Batteries and Valvoline, who contribute to the prize money fund, and obviously by Goodyear, a great series, and it'll produce very, very close racing throughout the season. Meantime, Peter Dane, 41, running away from car number 17. Andrew Harris back in third.
Steve Williams here, the orange and white car 11. He was fifth in last year's championship, and just in front of Mark Scaife, who was voted the most encouraging driver in last year's series. In fact, the battle now for second, third and fourth is starting to tighten up, and I think, if anything, they're beginning to reel in Peter Dane in car 41 on the right-hand side of the screen.
Coming out of the late corner, Dane doing it nicely. Car very, very well turned out. Scaife going through in car number 2, Mark Scaife.
That trio definitely getting closer to Peter Dane.
These cars conform with production Group E regulations other than the front suspension and a change of wheels over and above the standard Ford lasers. According to our theory, at least, they should all be identical and virtually stock standard. And this is why we get such close racing. And look here as Andrew Harris tries to hold out Steve Williams. Williams working hard at the wheel, looks for a gap on the inside, but it tightens up very quickly there. You find yourself getting crushed in a very short space of time.
At this stage of the race, Peter Dane's just a little more identical than everybody else.
Coming for the run downhill now to the left-hander at Honda. Some waltzing going on under brakes as Williams goes through. Number 11 takes the curb on the way in.
Will he lose it on the way out?
No, he doesn't. Jumps over the curb on the way out, though. They still haven't gained at all on Peter Dane, who comes down to the late corner. But look at this scrap for second, third and fourth. As number 2, Mark Scaife, arrives under brakes.
Young driver from the central coast of New South Wales, who was hoping to put together a Group A drive for later in the year. For the moment, he's stuck with the lasers.
They head across the line with 2 laps remaining. Up towards the top of Skyline, and there they go. Peter Dane still leads. There he goes over the top and will drop down now into Dunlop Loop. So Dane doing it nicely. Williams also making progress here as he storms after the race leader, Peter Dane. But Dane, I think, at this stage has got the wood on them with the laps running out.
Two of the people that really served it up to Peter Dane in this series last year were Mark Gibbs and Ken Douglas. They've moved into other categories of racing now. He was feeling a bit lonely out front there.
Well, Ken Douglas is now the chief technical advisor for the Laser Series. So if anybody knows what's going on with the laser, it's Ken Douglas. So he can keep an eye on his buddies, make sure that nobody steps out of line.
The series sponsored by the Goodyear Car Owners Club. It looks like that feeling is spread to Peter Dane. Comes down to the late corner.
It looks like Steve Williams is in a comfortable second, with Scaife in third, Harris dropping back into fourth. Still some battling for minor positions. Andrew Harris there with a P plate on the back of the car in one of his first 5 race meetings. And the clerk, of course, observing his activities today to ensure that he gets a signature on his licence if all goes well.
Last lap board is out. But Dane's done it well, as he usually does.
Took the curve that time and went out a bit wider than he wanted to be.
Nobody there to get underneath him, though.
No. Using all of the racetrack.
Steve Williams trying hard in car number 11 in second place.
Steve's having a big go now.
He hasn't got much choice because Mark Scaife has got his foot flat to the floor to try and reel him in.
And I'll tell you where Mark is really strong under brakes. He's very, very good under brakes. He's tidy. He knows how to dive into a corner late. And we'll watch him down here as he comes towards the late corner as we look at Peter Dane, car 41. Well on his way to victory. Williams has closed the gap.
Not enough, though. Coming around, the checkered flag is hung for Peter Dane. Good effort. Steve Williams crosses the line in second place, then Mark Scaife. Andrew Harris dropping back a little in the latter stages of the race, but good effort, and good effort particularly by the winner.
Confirmation on the Castrol scoreboard. Peter Dane the winner. Steve Williams takes second. Mark Scaife takes third. There's more motor racing action to come from Amaroo, and after the break, you'll be Tom Terrific. welcome back to Amaroo Park Raceway and our telecast of the Better Breaks 100, the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Well, a number of the Group A teams come under scrutiny here today, but none more than Peter Brock's Mobile Holden Commodore team. Brock plans to go to Europe in only 3 weeks' time to contest the opening round of the European Touring Car Championship. He'll be taking on Volvo and Rover, and Tom Walkingshaw is a man who plays all the cards straight out of the hat.
Yeah, we were well organised, and I think some of the reason for that was doing the races down in New Zealand. We actually started the ATCC with a crew, all the cobwebs blown out them, and you know, we were in good shape. We then had a couple of misfortunes in Sweden and Czechoslovakia. It's particularly Czechoslovakia, because we were leading with only 12 laps to go, and with a breakage and a joint in the suspension, and that let the Volvo get back at us, and you know, it took us to the end of the year really to come strong against them again.
When you started the season, how competitive did you anticipate the Volvos would be initially, and then of course midway through the season?
Well, we knew exactly how competitive they would be, because we went testing on the same circuits as they did, and we knew that we could shade them at the beginning of the year. When the testing results, we were 2 or 3 tenths of a second quicker than they were, so we weren't surprised that we were faster than they were at the beginning of the year.
When it came to Spa on the 24-hour race and the cars were running well early, what were your hopes then of a win at Spa?
I think that, you know, we went there with almost everything new in the car. I don't mean the specification new, all the componentry. It was zero life, and we were expecting a good result. What happened was that a timing disc for the distributor, the ignition, the supplier had made it a wrong spec to material, and the timing disc all shattered in all the cars. So all the cars went out with a stupid little electrical fault, which really, you know, it really cheeses you off, because if you blow the thing to bits, if you're really trying, then that's one thing, but to have a small electrical component failing and putting you out a 24-hour race is a little bit hard to swallow.
After duelling with the Volvos for most of the season, was it a surprise to go to Silverstone for the British Tourist Trophy and wind up with a Mitsubishi and a Ford Sierra sitting on the front row?
Well, I think the less said about that, the better, you know. All the cars in the ATC are scrutineered very, very closely, and your piece of scrutiny is making sure they're scrutineered closely. And occasionally you go into your country and you have, let's say, the odd local interpretation of something which can upset the apple cart. And those guys can, with turbos, can pull a few strokes in practice, and it's not available to you to do anything to answer it with a normally aspirated engine. You know? You can just keep turning the boost up all the time and blow a lap in. So
the win, anyway, in the British Tourist Trophy was quite a nice feeling.
Yeah, it was good. The chairman, Austin Rover, was pleased at the end of the day, and he's the guy who pays the ticket, so it's always good to make them happy.
It wasn't too long after that, prior to Bathurst, when you went to Zolder. You arrived at Bathurst still nursing a few bruised ribs and a little black and blue. What went on the weekend before?
Well, we'd figured out at Zolder that the only way we could get in front of the Volvo and put any pressure on it was if we led at the beginning, because the Rover was much quicker than the Volvo in the back part of the circuit, but down past the pits, the Volvo was much faster than we were. So we knew if he got in front, he would slow us down around the corners at the back and would always be able to get away from us in the straight. So one had to take a deep breath and try and get in front at the first corner. And that lovely little Italian had just got about 20 yards further than I'd planned, and I took a deeper breath than usual to try and get it back, and dropped it.
That was a severe clout.
It was very spectacular. I mean, you'd really liked it. It would have made lovely television.
That wasn't so good for the car, though, which I believe was brand new going to Zolder for that race, though.
It was a new car. We ran it for the first time at Silverstone, and we buried it after Zolder.
Monza's only a couple of weeks away, and of course Peter Brock and Alan Moffat have high hopes of doing well in Europe this year. You've been in Europe, you've been the king of Europe with your Rovers and Jags for the last few years. How difficult is it going to be for a new team on the block going to strange racetracks and try to set up and win?
I think it's very, very difficult to do. It's the same as us when we went down to Bathurst the year before last. You know what to do. Professional teams, and Brock's team is as professional as you'll get. They know exactly what you have to do. But you don't have a problem so long as everything's going right. It's when things start to go wrong, like you get caught up in someone else's accident, or it's wet in practice and dry in the race, and you've no experience to fall back on and how to set the car up. That's when you're left short, and you know, only time enables you to catch up in that. But we expect them to be very competitive. The Commodore is ultra fast.
Tom, you've got a very professional setup at home with the Rovers, of course, detailing all the Jaguars, the tyre shop, the transporters. You go to your racing first class. If the situation changed, could you go to racing second class?
I don't think anybody was expecting to win. I know we certainly couldn't. You know, we go to races to win, and if you can't, I mean, you won't win all the time, but you know, you're paid to win more often than you lose, and I don't really see anything that'll change that in the foreseeable future.
Tom Walkinshaw, the man that Peter Brock is going to have to keep an eye on when he hits Europe. But now we've got the Golden Oldies on the track here at Amaroo with the Les Vag Holden Appendix J Trophy Race. And on pole position, car 34, Bruce Allen driving a Mini, and alongside him on the front row in car 88, Greg Topher in the H Holden. Then Robert Tweedy and Frank Dartell both in Minis. Nigel Brennan in a Mini. Mark Duquette driving a Chevy Nova. The Minis are in evidence. Car 40, Bob Asher is next. Then Steve Trevica, Mike Dwyer, Sam Perry, Chris Oxley and Brad Tilley. The big field tailing out to about 25 starters.
Bruce Allen getting away quickly in the Mini, car number 34, but just look, the horde of cars as they head up the hill for the first time. But number 27, Steve Trevica, going up there at the Valiant as they head over the top of Nissan Skyline and drop into the Dunlop Loop for the first time. The little Mini in front. Quite a horde of Holdens following it, though, and everyone manages to get through the first turn without any trouble whatsoever. And they work now to the back part of the course, heading down towards Mazda Corner.
It's a good, strong entry. 25 entries, in fact, for the cars built in pre-1965 condition. A chance for them to have a blast from the past, as it were.
Well, Minis and Holdens dominated the top half of the grid, but we've got some Cortinas and Valiants in there, an earlier model Alfa Romeo as well. Great to see them on the racetrack again.
Bruce Allen establishing a good lead as they head down to the bottom bend, coming out of the Lake Corner, and the run along now to Wunderlich Turn. And he's speeding away well and truly from this pack as they come up to the line for one completed and four remaining in the Les Vag Holden sprint race for the Appendix J Golden Oldies here today at Amaroo Park.
Big effort by Mark Duquette in car 69. The Chevy Nova came off 6th position on the grid and is up into 3rd place at the moment.
It would certainly be a handful here at Amaroo Park, and there is the driver and the car. Beautifully turned out Chevy Nova. Wide line through there, but he's at least staying in touch with the leaders, Bruce Allen and Greg Topfer. There's the gap, first, second and third, and a couple more Minis coming up to worry the Nova as they head down to the left-hander.
Well, they're phenomenal little race cars in their day, the Minis, and they still got it, as you can see here at Amaroo Park.
This is Frank Dartell darting through on the inside, or attempting to, in car number 48 in the little red Mini, but you can see just what sort of a problem he has when the big Chevy Nova gets horsepower to the ground. And now the Minis close up under brakes down at Winfield and make their run back up towards the start-finish area once again. This is the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th. David and Goliath battle at that.
Pole man, Bruce Allen, still holds pride of place in the race, ahead of Greg Topher. Then Duquette in the Chevy Nova.
Interesting scrap this, Gary, because the Nova holding the Minis out, and there's one of them, the race leader at the moment, car number 34, Bruce Allen. He's out in front, a big lead, and I don't think they're going to peg him back inside the distance. Clearly
the fastest driver in qualifying. In fact, just the two off the front row, under 62 seconds in qualifying. Bruce Allen clocked 61.21 and Topher 61.87.
It's the case of the Magnum versus the Mini. The Nova trying to keep out these two Minis. They're pulling up line astern now to keep the pressure on Duquette as they come out of the bend. Now he'll be able to out-accelerate them heading down to the Lake Corner. He could find one either side by the time they reach the end of the straight. He gets away here, but watch them close up.
Oh, Robert Tweedy through on the inside, disposes of Frank Dartell. So the light blue Mini now set for a run on the inside, approaching the main straight. And Tweedy, the man we're watching there in car number 79, the light blue car, following him, Frank Dartell in the red Mini. But now they get out-dragged as they head up towards the top of the hill once again.
Yeah, quite markedly, but it's amazing how much ground they pick up around the back part of the circuit, isn't it?
They turn so well, and you can drive them so hard into a corner. I'd say Mark's got his hands full with the big Chevy.
We'll
trying to pull it up.
In this part of the racetrack, he's going to have some problems trying to hold back the driver of car number 79, Robert Tweedy. Watch Tweedy close as they head down to the little right-hand kink and then the run downhill to the left-hand at Honda Corner.
This is the battle for third place.
Tweedy has fallen for all this before. He's going to block the inside line. There he is, Tweedy. Bang. Oh, he thought about that, but it's too expensive to find new guards for Nova. Well, he's giving another run down here, and Tweedy is going in for the out-braking manoeuvre.
Bravery takes the honours at the late corner.
And he'll win that, and that's, of course, stirred up the other Mini driver behind as they come through Wonderlick Corner. And, of course, heading up the hill for the final time. 4 laps completed, 1 to go in this Appendix J race for the Golden Oldies.
Bruce Allen's treating them. There he is, over the top of the hill and down the other side on his last lap of the race and doing it very well indeed. He must be 80, 90 metres ahead of Greg Topher in the Holden. And a similar distance back to that scrap for third. But no doubt about it. Fastest qualifier, off pole, straight to the front, and leading all the way, Bruce Allen. Showing them how it's done in this mighty little racer of yesteryear. He's still got what it takes.
He's got a 4-second gap, Gary, over Greg Topper, so it's well and truly in the bag now with 2 corners remaining. So it'll be a win for the Brits. The Aussie E.H. Holden in second, and then another swag of minis. This is Topfer, back to the leader, Bruce Allen, coming out of the last corner and approaching the checkered flag, and it will be Bruce Allen who's victorious in the Appendix J Golden Oldies Trophy race.
Topher coming across the line second, and you'll find Robert Tweedy in the little blue mini is going to get up for third place ahead of Frank Dartell, and Mark Duquette and the Chevy Nova have disappeared. Oh, here they come, I think. No, he's even further back. There he is.
So, confirmation of placings from the Golden Oldies, and first, of course, goes to Bruce Allen in car number 34, the Mini. Second placing to Greg Topper in the E.H. Holden, and third goes to Robert Tweedy in yet another Mini. And we'll be back after this break to look at the man that cleaned them up in 1985.
Amaroo Park was just one of the circuits that was a home away from home in 85 for touring car champion Jim Richards. Jim, what about the 86 season?
Well, it looks good at the moment, Gary. It's we've got the little 3 Series car and a 6 Series to have the choice between, whichever is the better on the day.
Well, you've actually got 3 cars.
Well, yes, 3, but two are virtually identical, and one is the other bigger 6 Series car, as we ran last year.
Choice of 3 cars. What's Jim Richards going to do this year? He was so dominant with just the one vehicle in 1985.
JPS BMW went into the 85 season better prepared than anyone else for Group A racing, and they reaped the immediate rewards in the opening round at Winton. Richards came off pole and led throughout, while Neville Crichton hauled in the other contenders to give BMW the old 1-2 finish. But it was a moderate first up field, and many were prepared to discount the result, particularly after the mobile Holden dealer team entered the fray at Sandown and Peter Brock returned to the winners list at Richards' expense. Brock led the Jones Alpha and Johnson's Mustang off the pole, while Richards dodged a first corner mishap that took out teammate Crichton and Colin Bond. And Johnson spun himself out of contention soon after. Richards hounded the new Brock Commodore into the final stages of the race, but one small slip ended JPS hopes of a last lap challenge, and Brock held Richards out to the flag. Round 3 in 85 produced the third different winner when Kiwi Robbie Francevic delivered the goods in his turbo Volvo at Simmons Plains. In a super performance, Robbie blew the locals away in the duel for pole and repeated the dose on race day, with Johnson's Mustang doing the chasing. Brock and the BMWs did battle for the minors, but it was Crichton who went on to take third place behind Francevic and Johnson, while a minor mechanical problem saw Jim drift back to 5th, his worst result of the season. But when the touring car circus went west to Wanneroo, so did everyone else's hopes of winning the title. Richards' BMW won the jump from Brock, and the pair ran 1-2 to the finish. Johnson lost his chance at the outset when he accidentally hit the engine kill switch, and the field left him behind. But the Queenslander staged a mighty comeback for third, splitting the pack in some great dicing that also featured Jones, Francevic, Crichton and the local Rover drover Tim Slako. But up front, Richards was on a roll that was to take him to 6 straight victories. Adelaide saw teammate Crichton get the best of the start, but he was soon shouldered aside by Brock, Richards and Johnson, and the big 3 went at it hammer and tong. Richards finally outmanoeuvred Brock in a daring pass through the S's, but had to work hard to maintain the advantage. The fans were also treated to some wheels-up driving by Alan Jones, but the thrills were short-lived as a tardy pit stop cost valuable laps and Jones was left lamenting, although alpha mate Colin Bond scored a class victory behind Richards, Brock and Johnson, with the admirable Crichton in 4th place. The Adelaide antics sat nothing on the capers at Keilor, where the stampede off the grid saw Brock in front and Richards elbowed back to 5th. But 05 was soon under turbo attack from Francevic's Volvo. The pressure paid off, and the silver streak made the pace for 25 laps before the pack closed in the fiercest racing of the season. Richards and Johnson gave Robbie the rub and left the Volvo looking very much the worse for wear, while Alan Jones was again spectacularly aggressive in a class win and 4th outright for Alpha, and Crichton survived a rough passage for 3rd, but the checkered flag fell first for Richards, with Johnson tailing him home. Round 7, and Surfers proved a paradise indeed for series leader Richards. He motored the BM 635 straight to the front, and after surviving a first lap challenge from Peter Brock in 05, was never troubled again. As the rain came down, Brock surrendered 2nd to the Francevic Volvo, while Johnson survived an onslaught from Perkins and Crichton for 4th. But Jim Richards revelled in the wet to score an easy win. Gentleman Jim was beginning to look unbeatable, although at Lakeside the opposition had their chance when he blued the start and Johnson made the running from Perkins and Brock. But the BMW ace turned in a drive that underlined his dominance in 85. With 3 classic passing ploys, he first gathered in Brock, then Perkins in the 2nd dealer team Commodore, and finally corralled the Johnson Mustang to hit the front. It was still a close go in the final stages. A relentless Johnson almost forced the error, but Jim kept the JPS car on course for yet another victory. The penultimate round of the championship at Amaroo had Colin Bond on pole in the Alpha, but Johnson got the best of the start with Francevic, then Bond, Richards and Brock. However, Richards soon gathered the leaders in, and with Dick and Racecam looking on, the Black Knight took command again. Meantime, JPS newcomer Tony Longhurst in the BM 323 was giving Brock the treatment and getting an angry response. At the finish, even JPS team boss Curly Gardner cracked it for a smile as Richards cruised home ahead of Johnson and Longhurst to put the touring car title beyond doubt, even with 1 round to go. The wind-up was at Amaroo Park, and with the turbo working overtime, Robbie Francevic's Volvo bested Brock in the battle for the early lead and never looked back. Brock also came off worst in a duel for the minors with Richards and Johnson. Richards pegged Francevic to a 3-second lead in the closing stages, but then hit the wall, jamming the guard against a wheel, and the Volvo had the race won, with Johnson's Mustang getting up for 2nd and Richards 3rd. But it was all a formality, with BMW 1st and 4th in the final standings for 85, and Jim Richards winning 7 out of 10 starts, the Australian touring car champion.
Yes, what a year it was for Jim Richards in...
Yes, what a year it was for Jim Richards in 1985, Australian touring car champion. And Formula V's on the grid now. Let's take a look at the way they'll line up. On the front row, Stephen David has pole position, 60.84. Michael Cars-Cadden alongside him. On the 2nd row, Bernie Hanley, Frank Kleinig. The 3rd row, David Smith, David Cutts. The 4th, Norm Johnston, Chris Lewis. The 5th, Brian Phillips and Peter Laddox. And the 6th row, Dennis Gillespie, Gerard Mannion. It'll be 5 laps, and as usual, great Formula V action. The national flag is raised. Revs start to build. Identical 40 brake horsepower Formula Vs roar away from the line, and it's the man in car number 2, Stephen David in the Commando, who takes the whole shot.
And David getting away very quickly indeed as they make their way up to the top of Nissan Skyline for the first time and drop over the top into the right-hander at Dunlop Loop. But just looky here. It's the old super vet Bernie Hanley who's gone through. He's snookered them at the top of the hill. And Bernie, who knows how to win round here from behind or from the front, has taken over the lead as they work their way down towards Mazda Corner. That was a great start from Bernie Hanley, and he slipped into the lead as they crested Skyline. There's one having some problems and pulling off the circuit. But back to the race, and Hanley is in front, doing it nicely. Stephen David dropping back into 2nd spot, and they're starting to pull away from a draft of about 3 or 4 cars, then a very big gap to the 2nd bunch.
I think the car in trouble there, Mike, was car 23, Brian Phillips in the Avanti.
Out of the lake turn.
No trouble for Bernie Henley. There's only one place he knows where to be, and that's in front.
Although he did finish 2nd in last year's series and pipped by Ian Simpson from Queensland, who took the series out with 30 points, 2 clear of Bernie Hanley. But Bernie doing business nicely again at the moment from Stephen David, and coming up on the outside in car 3, Frank Kleinig in the black car.
David Smith just in behind them in 4th spot. Similar paint job to Bernie Henley's leading car.
They're having a great scrap here. Stephen David, Frank Kleinig moving up to join them as they come out of the bend. Working down towards Mazda Corner, and that is an enormous gap that Bernie Hanley is establishing over 2nd, 3rd and 4th. They head down to the left-hander at Honda. Look at that, Gary.
Terrific dicing through here with these Formula Vs. Look at them side by side. Stephen David, Frank Kleinig. David just a nose in front. Kleinig's got the line going into the lake corner. There's Henley. well clear of this scrap and glad to be that way. And Kleiny comes out on top. And David now under challenge from David Smith.
He's shuffled him back to fourth. Keeping in mind that Stephen David was the fastest qualifier yesterday, 60.84. And about 41 hundredths of a second quicker than Michael Kaz-Cadden in the Renmax. We haven't spotted him as this race unfolds. He's back off the pace at the moment. But number 3, Frank Kleiny, the man making the moves at the moment, as they head down once again towards Mazda Corner.
You mentioned Michael Kaz-Cadden in car number 25. Came off the front row of the grid, qualified tremendously well in 61.24. I don't think we've spotted him in any of our telecast races last season here at Amaroo Park. But he did come through one of the driving schools out here, and they tell me that he's got a way about him. He likes to be very aggressive. I think he's found that the rest of the V boys know their apples around here as well.
He's dealing with a pretty hardened bunch here. Bernie Hanley, of course, no slouch when it comes to winning in the Formula Vs and taking any number of the Coca-Cola Bottler Series. There's the scrap for second. They're all chasing Bernie, who's disappearing up the hill. Number 3, Frank Kleiny. Moving in behind him is Stephen David, the fast qualifier. See if David will have a run here down the inside. There's Bernie, doing it ever so nicely. Very clean with his lines through Dunlop. And away he goes. And there's the gap. You can see it starting to open up even more between Bernie and this scrap between Stephen David and Frank Kleiny. Kleiny in number 3, the black car, the Mako. And he Mako no mistakes so far. Coming out of the bend, Stephen David has been working on him for quite a while now as they head down to the right-hander.
The trio behind them in 5th, 6th, 7th place. Chris Lewis in car number 16 driving a Predator, followed by Peter Laddix in a Renmax, and car number 88, Gerard Mannion in a Spectre. But this is the real scrap between these two.
Last lap coming up. Bernie in front. Here's David as he looms up on the outside of Frank Kleiny, and they race wheel to wheel up Bitcher Pay for the final time. They'll crest Nissan Skyline together, and he'll come out in front.
Stephen David does. And Kleiny under pressure now from David Smith.
Smith has done a good job. He's held on to the tail of that bunch throughout this race.
It's made the race, though, that scrap for Bernie Henley, because while they've been going at it hammer and tong, he's had a clear ride up front.
Coming down to Honda Corner, there's Bernie Hanley. Been tooling these open wheelers around Amaroo Park for quite a number of years and opening the gap all the time. There's the scrap, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. David trying to cover his tracks as he slips down the inside. Oh, look at this.
David Smith trying to get under both unsuccessfully at the lake corner. Goes to the outside now, David Smith, as we see Bernie Henley round the bottom turn. The checkered flag in his sights, and he opens the season, as I said before, the way he knows best. Well, this division go to the line with Stephen David holding out the other pair. But gee, it was close for third. I think David Smith might have nutted Frank Kleiny right on the line. Very, very close indeed.
Confirmation of placings on the Castrol scoreboard. The win goes to Supervet Bernie Hanley. 2nd spot to Stephen David. And in fact, Smith takes 3rd in number 8. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll tell you about how the kid strikes back. The complexities of planning a national telecast, such as today's touring car round from Amaroo Park, are many and varied. Up to 60 personnel are involved and all contribute as a team. On occasions, our commentators have been known to horse around in the line of duty, which brings us to the problem of Neil Crompton. He actually fancies himself as a no-recce keki or even a half Nelson. Our skid-lid kid took to the track late last season in the Mitsubishi 300 at Winton in Victoria and recorded a top 10 finish in his first ever enduro. Today we've got problems though. You could even call it double trouble, for you know who wants to split his time between all that techo spiel and another stint behind the wheel.
Oh, thanks very much, Mike Raymond. Yeah, thank you. That's right, I'm going to be jumping in and out of the
Mitsubishi Cordia Group E car today, in and out of the commentary box and into the racing car for 2 races, 5 and 8 laps. It promises to be extremely exciting. There's some talented drivers out there, and one of the more interesting entries who's got some big plans for 86 is Leo Gagan.
We have our Cordia here with us this weekend, which is the car that Tony Gregg and I won with in Adelaide. That's just to give me a few laps because it's 10 years plus since I raced competitively. But the second car will be for Tony Gregg, and we're looking forward to renewing our association with Tony. And I think it's going to be a beaut year.
Do you find it hard to get back into a road car that has traits completely different to a racing car?
Oh, it's probably nearer to the speed I want to travel at these days, Neil. I'm not kidding myself. I'd love to drive a good open wheeler, but you can't get away for 10 years and come back and be right on the pace. It's easier to do in a car like this. And as I say, we can justify it commercially because we're in the business of selling Mitsubishi, and we can have a damn good time while we're doing just that.
Do you think it's a good nursery for young drivers?
It's very good. In fact, our third car, more often than not during the year, we're hoping to offer it to young drivers to give them a look at some way that they can do their motor racing, and more importantly get other people and sponsors to look at them. So we will have 3 cars at every meeting, so we hope that we'll do well for ourselves and well for some up-and-comers in the sport, because it's very hard for them to get cracking, as I'm sure you know.
And your program for the year will go right through the entire 2WS series?
Yes, right through here, 3 or 4 interstate meetings, a few at Melbourne, Amaroo Park. Yeah, good. We've got about a 15, 16 race program, which is enough when you've got 3 cars.
Does it feel good to be back?
I'm enjoying it, yeah. Great fun. I wouldn't like to be on the front row next to Brocky. Not this weekend anyhow, maybe later.
All right, we look forward to seeing how you fare, and in fact we'll see all 20 cars line up in the 2WS Group E Stallion Stable race when we return on 7 after this break. And welcome back to Amaroo Park Raceway, where we're preparing for the Stallion Stable 2WS Group E Production Car Series race. 5 laps is the distance for the event. Let's take a look at the grid. Mark Gibbs in car number 50 has pole position. From 2 is car 3, Peter Fitzgerald in the Stallion. From 3, 14, Bradley Jones in the Stallion. From 4, number 21, Roland Hill in a Commodore. From 5, 64, Des Gibbs in a Stallion. From position 6, car number 10, Brian Potts in a Commodore. From 7 is 56, Brett Yulden in a Commodore from Victoria. From position 8, our own Neil Crompton in a Cordia, and there's the grid lined up almost ready for dispatch. Peter Granger starts from 9, John Burke from 10, and Ray Spence from the Australian Capital Territory from 11, and rounding out the 12, Leo Gagan, car number 9. Good looking field for this sprint race. And talking about sprinting, one of the young lasses was doing just that. Well, there's the kid. You've met him. He's spoken to Leo Gagan at this stage. He's out-qualified Leo, but then again, Leo's been out of the saddle for a while, as they say.
Let's see Crompton put his foot where his mouth usually is.
Enough. Okay, ready for a start. About 10 seconds away. Mark Gibbs on pole in the Commodore, and sharing the front row, Peter Fitzgerald in the Stallion. And they're racing, and they get off as 1. I think Fitzgerald, in fact, has won the start on the outside, and a beautiful start from Roland Hill. Starts 3 wide as they make their way, heading up to the top of the hill, and car number 10 follows very quickly. That's Brian Potts. Have a good scrap going here in the sprint race for the Stallion Stable 2WS Sprint.
My goodness, that Commodore of Hills has got some toe, hasn't it?
Quickest thing up the hill.
Like lightning off the grid, and he takes the early lead in this race.
They sweep out of Dunlop Loop and now work down towards Mazda Corner. And Hill looking the goods at this stage, using all of the racetrack. Peter Fitzgerald was swamped by the field as they crested the top of Nissan for the first time. Now the skatey stuff under brakes. Gary, well, no, who was it we're looking at there going through? Bradley Jones making a good exit from the turn. The rest of the field goes through.
Mark Gibbs challenging for the lead, coming down at the lake corner. Caught on the outside, though, of Roland Hill as they go in. Hill's got the line. Hill's got the lead still.
21 leads Roland Hill in the NCR Commodore. The challengers coming up on the inside. Oh, that was close, Mark Gibbs, but he manages to get through and take over the lead. Wrestles it away from him as they head up Bitcher Pave again.
It's Commodore 1, 2, 3 at the moment.
Yep. And back behind them, Peter Fitzgerald is the next one to go through in the Stallion as they go over the top of Nissan Skyline. Look at this scrap. They tuck in tight through this corner. Starion just nibbling away here with Peter Fitzgerald, and back behind him the Perrier Starion being driven of course by Bradley Jones. Had a little off-track excursion during practice yesterday, but it's back and running strongly. Just the right tonic. Oh, the race leader very much sideways, Roland Hill. He was almost rolling home if he'd grabbed another opposite lock there, but he'll lead them coming out of the bend, heading down to the lake corner again, and they're running very strongly in the Group E class, the Commodores.
1, 2, 3 at the top of the field. Commodores. Fitzgerald just had the flick there from young Jones and the other Starion. He's moved up into 4th place behind the Commodore trio at the head of affairs.
There's Neil Crompton's crew laughing, so they should be. He's going back through the field. Neil's 12th at the moment, qualified 8th.
He had a bit of a nudge down in the lake corner last time round, I think, from one of the other runners. That didn't do him too much good.
Here's Brian Potts running in 3rd in the Stallion Stables 2WS event. Look of it, unsponsored Commodore, but he's still running quite strongly.
Brad Jones doing desperate things to try and get onto Potts' tail too. Stay in touch with the leading trio. There's Jones and the Perrier car behind him, then Fitzgerald.
Coming down to Honda corner again. Potts using a little of the curve to get into the turn. And Brad Jones is closing up right behind him. Next back behind them is Fitzgerald as they go towards the lake corner.
Yeah, they're racing in 3s at the moment. In fact, the next car after that is another Starion. So we've got 3 Commodores, 3 Starions, and the top 6 cars have got a bit of a break now on the rest of the field.
Here's the Perrier Starion driven by Bradley Jones. Very, very tidy driver indeed. Knows the quick line around here at Amaroo Park. And watch Jones work over on Potts. As they go to the top of Nissan Skyline, he'll hound him all the way up to the crest of the hill and then try and drop in if he possibly can on the exit of this turn. Potts goes in pretty deeply. Jones sits right on the tail there in the Perrier 14 Starion as they come down towards Mazda corner again.
Mark Gibbs continues to lead the race. Look at this dice. Oh, terrific stuff.
That is a good passing move from Brad Jones. And Jones now breaks that Commodore 1, 2, 3. Still Commodore 1, 2. And the Starion is now up into 3rd. Potts not far behind him. Peter Fitzgerald is the next one to go through as they go down towards the lake.
Mark Gibbs up front in car number 50. There he is with 1 lap remaining. The last lap board about to go out.
Coming up for the last lap, and Roland Hill is rolling free at this stage in the to the top of the hill. Sorry, Mark Gibbs, my mistake. Gibbs drops down into Dunlop corner for the final time. Coming out of the bend and still managing to pull away from the rest of the field as he comes down through Mazda and the downhill run to Honda corner. Here they come out of the bend. Mark Gibbs, not too far to travel. And Brad Jones is the big mover, coming up to 3rd, and a strong challenge for 2nd, as you can see here, as he makes his way down on the inside.
Hasn't got the acceleration there.
No, Hill won't give him the rub. Okay, checkered flag coming out. It's going to be Mark Gibbs across the line. He'll take the Stallion Stable 2WS Sprint from Hill, and Brad Jones in car number 14.
Well, that was quite a scrap, wasn't it? They've got plenty of power, these the Commodores, in the Group E category racing this year, and I think as the season unfolds, we're going to see some tremendous clashes here. But let's confirm the placings here. Car 50, Mark Gibbs is the winner. 2nd place to car 21, and that is Roland Hill. And 3rd placing in the event has gone to the Starion, number 14, driven by Bradley Jones. Well, busy day here for those guys. Busy day too for Peter Brock. And of course, Brock, it's not just Australian touring car commitments this year. He's got a busy program of international commitments as well. Peter Brock is going to be a man to follow as season 86 unfolds.
The Peter Brock Alan Moffat Mobile Roadshow got off to a spectacular start just over a month ago in the streets of Wellington, New Zealand. The second annual 500-kilometre sprint around the Wellington waterfront saw British ace Andy Rouse on pole position in the Ford Sierra Turbo, with Robbie Francevic alongside in the Mark Petch Volvo. The Kiwi had won the first edition street meet in '85, and it didn't take him long to get the upper hand, while Brock, the fastest man in the only dry practice session, always looked threatening.
Johnson really touched off a chain reaction there as they went through the hairpin at the end of the main straight, and John Harvey was in a lot of trouble in car number 7, but look at Brock and Rouse side by side, and Brock's got him.
Brock now moves to second place. There's Robbie Francevic leading them down towards the dock area. Brock about 100 metres behind, followed by Andy Rouse. And the next one is Dick Johnson, and then Alan Grice making a challenge as well. Going into the left-hander that will bring them onto the wharf area here in Wellington. And Francevic setting up a good lead already. Turbo up nicely, and he's running away from Peter Brock at this stage. There were a number of early casualties in the Enduro. Graham Bowcat attempted to knock down a bridge and failed. Andy Rouse had even less success after clawing the concrete, while unscheduled pit stops for John Harvey and Dick Johnson cost them dearly. All the time, though, His Royal Highness of Moomba was closing on the leading subject. To the Custom House key again, and Robbie Francevic has Peter Brock even closer. They're coming up on John Harvey, who's made his pit stop. See if Brock can get the slingshot as they come along the main street here in Wellington. And Brock pulling to the outside as he races Francevic down to the left-hander. And he'll take Francevic on the inside. So Peter Brock now goes through to lead the Nissan Noble 500. Francevic in second place in the Volvo. And a good passing manoeuvre from Brocky. Brocky was revelling in the conditions. Wellington had attracted a number of important folk from the leading European teams. They'd all flown in for a sticky beak at the Commodore and to gauge its potential in the ATCC this year. The sight of Peter Perfect playing traffic warden at the head of the pack was enough to make your egg and burger unpalatable.
I saw the smoke coming everywhere inside the car and around the car.
It appears as though you're going to be in here for some time.
Yes, I think it takes at least 5 minutes to change it.
Brock came in for his first pit stop, giving Alan Moffat his first co-driver's role with the mobile team. The crew set Alan on his way with a new set of slicks just as the rain arrived on cue. Moffat aquaplaned his way around the track, but came in a second time for a set of intermediates. By this time, the Commodore's lead had vanished. Ray Smith took over for a spell in the ACB Commodore until he in turn was gathered in by Tony Longhurst in the BMW 635. Longhurst's form in the wet was truly outstanding. He established a big lead until Moffat came in to hand over to Peter Perfect. Study and concentration.
Oh, brilliant stop from the dealer team. A real good job by Tony Di Gennaro, the man that just went through shot, and they got the car out in around about 20 seconds.
And here is Brock catching some ground up. So they're probably back now still with 2 laps down. So he's made up the ground on the pit stop as they go beneath Graham Crosby. And Longhurst will probably try and stick to his tail, although I think Longhurst might be facing a tyre problem as well very shortly because the track is completely dry along the centre of town. The best fight back of the day came from the pairing of Dick Johnson and Neville Crichton in the JPS Mustang. The Queenslander was now on slicks and storming back after the leaders. That early pit stop was to cost him the race. Brock continued to whittle back Longhurst's lead lap after lap, but the affable Queenslander made a hasty exit from the field when his BMW had a front suspension failure.
You know, that's motor racing. You know, it can happen 1 lap from the finish. It's a shame it happened. I had the race under control. I had 10 laps to go, and I was running at a very comfortable, safe speed. As I was going down the back straight there, the wheel just let go and the part of the suspension broke off. I kept on going straight ahead in the tyre barrier. Coming out of the last corner, across the strike, and Peter Brock and Alan Moffat take the Wellington 500 and take it well. The second leg of the Nissan Mobile Series in New Zealand was held a week later at the Pukekohe circuit near Auckland, where Alan Grice stole pole position in the Commodore. Brock was an early casualty with engine problems, while the Walkinshaw Rovers both ploughed off the circuit in the same corner and had lengthy pit stops to repair crumpled coachwork.
The number 7 Mobile Commodore of John Harvey and Neil Lowe became stronger as the race progressed, and a confident Harvey left his Kiwi co-driver in the car for the final sprint to the checkered flag.
We got about 26 seconds on him after that last pit stop, and Neil will now run to the finish. He can afford to just cruise a little bit and save himself. I think we can make it to the finish, but you never know. I've been in this position at Bathurst many times and lost out in the last few laps, but it's looking good at the moment. I think we can make it.
Lowe cruised to the line to give the team its second major success in 1986. Brock and Moffat start their European campaign at Monza, Italy in 3 weeks. The ETC Championship big guns are ready and waiting. And make no mistake, we have 2 Commodore locals only too happy to accommodate them.
They're your mobile team. They're your mobile team.
And welcome back to Amaroo Park as the Formula Fords line up in the pit lane area in what is continuing to be a great afternoon's motorsport. We look there at Jeffrey Walters, contested last year's Formula Ford Series with great style.
What a great afternoon we have here at Amaroo Park for the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, round number 1. As you can see in the background, that's clouding over at Amaroo. There has been the threat of rain here early this morning. And of course, in the last half hour, those black, ominous clouds have come over the circuit. And that is not good news for drivers who might have to make a last-minute tyre selection for this afternoon's 52 lap race here for the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Some of the drivers who will be seeing in action in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series, one of the most popular and most hard-fought series in motorsport. And Amaroo Park being one of the tightest circuits that we visit each season, it's really a racetrack where you have big problems if you scarper off the circuit at any point.
It certainly is. Winner of last year's series was Thomas Mazzero. As we look there at some of the touring cars from yesteryear. Of course, this is the 27th annual Australian Touring Car Championship this year. Look there, I think at the 190 series AMG Mercedes-Benz, a lovely motor car. It would be nice to have one of those. Second in last year's Formula Ford Series was Jeff Walters, the driver that we looked at before, and third was Richard Carter, the driver that carried race cam for us last year, as we continue to scan across some of these golden oldies. So this year, the Formula Ford Series will be held over 4 rounds this weekend, then the 25th of May, the 22nd of June, and then the 3rd of August.
And a big crowd in attendance here at Amaroo Park Raceway today. Obviously very, very keen to see how the new-look Commodores perform in the Touring Car Championship. Track's in good shape. So it's all to come. That's a little later in our telecast this afternoon of the ATCC. And from Amaroo Park Raceway, the scene, of course, as I mentioned, for the Australian Touring Car Championship this afternoon. We have the vehicles ready to come out of the circuit for the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series. This is round 1 of a very popular series here at the Annengrove circuit. And the cars are coming out of the pit area now. It's been quite a season for Formula Ford. And, of course, they're missing their top gun of last season, Neil Crompton.
Yes, Thomas Mazzero, we believe, has arranged a good drive in England in Formula Ford over there, and we wish him well. We hope that he does extremely well, but we've still got a very good field lined up this weekend for the start of the 4-round series. There's 21 cars entered. The driver we looked at there was Bradley Forjard in the Von Diemen. One of the interesting entries is Warwick Brooklyn, son of Jack Brooklyn and the winner of the Sydney Hobart Yacht Classic, and he'll be one driver to watch in this. He did run Formula Ford a couple of years back, and very successfully, I might add. So we shall see what happens with him. And another fellow to keep an eye on is number 22, Andrew Gubb, who's driving the Yellow Royale. He's been looked after by Greg Pee-wee Siddle, the team manager that took Larry Perkins and Peter Brock to Le Mans and has looked after people like Roberto Moreno, Nelson Piquet, Nicky Lauda. So perhaps Pee-wee feels that Andrew has the talent to go on and be a successful racing driver in years to come. And of course, let's not discount Richard Carter. And he was the man that gave us those great pictures last year through the eyes of Seven's race cam off the front of a Formula Ford, and the first time that we've seen pictures from an open wheeler live from the driver's seat.
Well, he's qualified well, as you say. 54.19 his time. I think you'll find Jeff Walters a pretty tough guy to beat over the distance. Walters, of course, Mr. Ever Present in the Logan Holmes entry, the green car, carrying number 2, the Elwyn. Has always been a very, very strong performer here at Amaroo Park Raceway. The cars are coming up to grid up now for the start of what should be a very, very tough round of competition. The opening round of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series.
In fact, Michael, we might take a look at the grid as they'll line up. The top 12 positions on pole position, Richard Carter in the Maytech, 54.19. Alongside him on the front row is Jeff Walters in the Elwyn. The second row, Bradley Forjard in car number 6 and Warwick Rooklyn, car number 76. On the third row, car 22 is Andrew Gubb in the Royale, and he's sharing the third row with car 15, Richard Steigler. The fourth row is Andrew Burden from Australia's Capital Territory. He shares that row with David Stanley from Queensland. Row 5, Alan Fish and Bruce Gibbs. And rounding out the top 12 drivers in this field, car number 40, Dale Thompson, and car number 10 is Stephen Moody from Victoria.
And we've got some problems here.
Jeff Walters has been pushed off the grid.
Yes, mechanics pushed him off the grid, so he obviously has some problem with the car. He wasn't too happy about it, let me tell you. And we've got the cars just about ready for dispatch in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series, round 1 this afternoon from Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. About 8 seconds away from the start. Flag is up. Carter the front row by himself. And they're racing, and Carter gets away very quickly indeed, but even quicker at 76 is Warwick Rooklyn. And he charges to the outside as they head up the hill for the first time, looking for the lead at the top of Nissan Skyline as they drop down into Dunlop Loop. And here they come into the right-hander. One of the tightest circuits in Australia, Amaroo Park Raceway. There's the field going through.
Rooklyn's got it. He's got the front. That's a big effort. He's got by Carter going up the hill first time. Bradley Forjard slotting into third place.
So Warwick Rooklyn will lead going down towards Honda Corner. Once he's in front, it could be just plain sailing from there.
If my memory serves me correctly, the last time that Warwick Rooklyn drove a Formula Ford, he finished up end for ending the car at Winton, and we haven't seen him since. So I think this is his first return. Well, look at the battle here.
Richard Carter's not going to give away without a fight as Rooklyn comes out of the lake turn. Moving right up behind him is Richard Carter as they make their way out of the bend. Bradley Forjard is the next one through, and they will then follow by Andrew Gubb. A horde of Formula Fords head up Bitcher Pave Hill again. Number 6, Bradley Forjard running in third, over the top and down into Dunlop Loop. He's done very well indeed, Rooklyn.
Well, for a man that hasn't done a lot of driving, and most of it pretty well spaced between yachting and other commitments, he's come to terms with the circuit here at Amaroo again very quickly, hasn't he?
Yes, one would think it might be a little more restraining than the course for the Sydney to Hobart.
This car that Rooklyn is driving is the car that Greg Kentwell drove last year in the series. We saw him a couple of times here at Amaroo. Richard Carter now getting very close to the gearbox of the lead car as they plunge down to the lake corner. It gets to within 2 and 3 metres of the leader. And still car number 6 there in third place, Bradley Forjard.
Out of the bend, once again across the line, and they head up Bitcher Pave Hill. Warwick Rooklyn, Richard Carter, 1-2. And now Carter makes his move on the outside as they slip up to the top of Skyline. Can he do it inside the distance? He's going to put the pressure on. Rooklyn's got the inside run as they come down. That's going to catch Carter 1 out and 1 back. Look for number 6, Bradley Forjard, to close it up. Carter doesn't give it away, though. He hangs right in there and still makes a move as they come down towards Mazda Corner. This is great Formula Ford racing from Amaroo Park. Through Mazda. Downhill run now to the left-hander at Honda Corner.
Oh, gee, Bradley Forjard looking every which way to try and get through here, but the pair in front of him take up a fair bit of the track.
The short straight, the run down past the lake corner. And here comes Carter. Down under brakes. I hope they all work. And straight out towards the wall, but he catches it. Nice passing manoeuvre there from Richard Carter. Rooklyn now back to second. Forjard is still in third, and the fourth place driver now moving up behind them. Once again across the line and up Bitcher Pave Hill. Rooklyn thinks about it. Yes, sirree. Straight up on the inside, but he won't do it there, let me tell you. It was close, though.
The car that's flashed up into fourth place, car number 9 is David Stanley. Came out of nowhere, jumped up 3 or 4 places there in one hit, got past Richard Stiegler. Big effort. And now on the tail of the leading division. Carter in front. Rooklyn second, Forjard third, then Stanley.
Close company as they come out of Honda Corner, running down towards the lake and the right-hander. Richard Carter opening up just a little of a break here. But look at the scraps for second, third and fourth.
Yeah, Stanley having another go at the back of that pack.
Pack terraces in the background. A turn-away crowd here at Amaroo Park today for the Australian Touring Car Championship. Once again, back across the line. Richard Carter, the Maytag, fast qualifier, 54.19, and he leads the parade up Bitchapave Hill.
David Stanley's done very well to come up off 8th position on the grid. In fact, the fella that's dropped back down the line is Andrew Gubb in car 22.
Yep, hardly been sighted since the flag dropped. All the attention's been on the leading division, though. The top 4 or 5, great scrap, particularly between Carter and Brooklyn. The race not over yet. Although Carter actually has got a bit of a break going through the last lap. Bit rough there for Forjard. Got the rear wheels up on the rough strip at the edge of the circuit. Didn't cost him any ground, though. Carter goes through. There he is, car number 8, Maytag. Gave up the lead off the grid to Brooklyn, who started in blistering fashion, but then took it back after a couple of laps with a great manoeuvre down through the lake corner under brakes, and now has established a pretty clear lead. There's Brooklyn in car number 76. Seems whatever he turns his hand to in the sporting field, he's pretty successful at.
Yes, he's done an excellent job here today so far. There's the leader going through. There's second, coming up to third, Bradley Forjard.
I'd reckon the start of a Sydney Hobart yacht race would be just about as hectic as one of these, wouldn't it?
So I don't think anyone's ever led one that quickly. Still Richard Carter in the Vision Graphics Maytag. Heading down to the turn. We're on Bradley Forjard. He's running in third at the moment. Just ahead of him is Warwick Brooklyn. And there's the field going through. Carter's the first one.
4 laps to go, and there's the 4th place getter, car number 9, David Stanley.
Down from Queensland, doing a good job too.
Richard Stiegler right on his back in car 15.
There's the gap. It's opening all the time as Richard Carter.
Oh, gee, out of shape there, Stanley, and he's going to let Stiegler through on the inside.
Little poke of a wheel, that didn't do anyone any harm. So that's all it takes here at Amaroo Park, that reverse camber corner we know as Dunlop. If you're a little offline getting into the turn, you're an awful way offline coming out of the turn.
Looking pretty good as this race unwinds now for Richard Carter rather, coming into the lake corner. In fact, he's just lapped a car.
It's not bad.
He's got a gap now of nearly 2 seconds over his nearest rival, and he must be getting down towards lap record time held by Thomas Mazira in a time of 53.3.
Thomas Mazira, of course, young Czechoslovakian, was the man who dominated Formula Ford racing in Australia last year. And he has international plans. I tell you what, if young Richard Carter can carry on with this form throughout the season, he's going to be very, very hard to pull back in a couple of the other series.
I think Mazira is already in England, isn't he? And I think he's had a couple of drives. Well, the competition would be pretty hot even if he were here today from Richard Carter, because he hasn't put a foot wrong. Didn't panic after Brooklyn beat him off the line the first time around. Took his time to work into a position, regained the lead, and has widened the gap ever since. 75 metres now on the second pair. There's Brooklyn going through along with car number 6, Bradley Forjard. He's held third right from the outset.
Carter heading up Bitchapave Hill now. 2 laps remaining. There's Warwick Brooklyn, Bradley Forjard. 1, 2, 3 in the opening round of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series here at Amaroo Park Raceway in Sydney. I think Brooklyn will benefit greatly by the run here today. Great effort after doing a lot more sailing than he has car racing over the last 18 months.
It's a shame that Jeff Walters wasn't able to take his position on the grid and join in the battle here with Richard Carter. In fact, Jeff said to me yesterday that at this stage he's unsure whether he can run a series because unfortunately lost his sponsor from last year. So he's on tenterhooks at the moment, hoping to be able to get back in business. But Richard Carter's doing it nicely. 54.33 confirmation comes through on Richard Carter's time. That's 1 second off the pace. But it's quite comfortable to be in front of this field at the moment now, and you can see the last lap board out, 1 remaining.
There's no way, unless he does something awfully wrong, that they're going to catch Richard Carter in the last lap of this race. Look at him. Clearing right away now from Brooklyn and Forjard and the rest of the field history, I think.
I think he's worn them down. The opening laps were quite hectic, but of course Carter hung in there, just took his time, and when the appropriate moment came along, he was able to zap past Warwick Brooklyn. Since then, he's been able to open up that gap lap after lap. The Vision Graphics, Maytech. Richard Carter at the wheel, heads down towards the lake corner for the final time. Tight turn, only an unforgiving concrete wall as your exit point. The short straightaway. That brings you back onto the start-finishing straight here at Amaroo Park Raceway. The Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula Ford Series, round 1. Checkered flag goes to Richard Carter. Second across the line is going to be Warwick Brooklyn. And third place is going to be taken by Bradley Forjard.
And they space the rest of the field. Richard Stiegler coming in behind them along with David Stanley. Not a bad scrap between that pair for 4th and 5th position. But there's no doubt Richard Carter in car number 8 is the winner. From car 76, Warwick Brooklyn in 2nd place, and car number 6, Bradley Forjard in 3rd. And I'll be back after this break to talk to the winner. Nice way to start the season, Richard Carter.
Thank you very much.
Tell me, a bit of a disappointment at the start there when we had one car pushed off. In fact, the man that was alongside you on the front row. And then we had Warwick Brooklyn really give you a bit of hurry up the hill.
Yes, it was disappointing that Jeff Walters couldn't make the start. I think that would have made the race a bit more interesting. I think I might have had to earn my money a bit harder. But it was good to see young Warwick up there in the lead for some laps. He's been out of it for a while, but he's obviously got the talent to be up the front.
We were very happy to see that your brakes worked when you pulled off the passing manoeuvre going down the lake corner there, because you needed all you had, I think.
You should have felt it from my point of view.
Richard, another amazing thing about the race is that that car of yours has been around for a long time, and there were cars that finished a long way behind you today that are much more advanced in technology, but you've still got this machine going terrifically well.
Well, it's not really my doing to make it go so well in that respect. I think I must thank my pit crew, who have worked endlessly over the Christmas period. They've completely rebuilt the car. And what they've done actually is just make 100% sure that everything is pointing in the right direction. All the tolerances are absolutely right. So I think that goes to show that even an old car, if it's set up correctly, can still perform quite adequately.
You've been involved in this category of racing for a long time now. I don't know whether we should call attention to that. When did you win this series? It was about
1976, I think.
76, was it?
My wife often reminds me.
Oh, is that right? Did you?
Well, she thought I should have retired.
I was going to say, did you offer to retire and then renege?
I think I did mention it, but well, she says I mentioned it at the time anyway.
Great effort today, and we wish you all the best for the Coca-Cola Bottlers Series for 1986. Terrific victory in the opening round.
Thank you very much.
Richard Carter, congratulations. Well, Nissan are back. It's great to see. And they're going to give a lot of people some hurry up in the Touring Car Championship rounds right around Australia this year. Here's Mike Raymond.
Turbo technology was pioneered in the Australian Touring Car Championship a few years ago by Nissan. The little Bluebirds ran like the wind in several rounds of the championship, but the headline catcher came when George Fury stole pole position for the 1984 James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst. Nobody believed the silent screamer could displace the muscle V8s of Peter Brock and Dick Johnson, but George did it, and he did it with style. '84 was the last Hardy Classic for the Group C Road Rockets, and when the Group A International category commenced in Australia in January, Nissan failed to make the roll call. The team was regrouping, putting the finishing touches to a car which might rattle the V8s, given time.
Have I got some good news for you?
The new Group A Nissan Skyline made its entrance at a special media launch in Sydney this week. Decked out in its Peter Jackson colours, the Skyline is a potent little package. 2-litre, 4-cylinder, double overhead cam, 16 valves, turbocharged and fuel injected.
Good, huh?
Howard Marsden, Fred Gibson and the Nissan team have been working hard on the Peter Jackson Skyline for several months. Extensive testing has been carried out at the Calder circuit near Melbourne, where the car has been well under the Group A qualifying times of last year. Former rally ace George Fury retains his spot as the team's lead driver. He believes the car will be a regular winner on the championship trail.
Of course, overseas, the turbo cars have done great things, and they've won the European Touring Car Championship. And on having driven this car, I think that it's got a great deal of promise, and it's got a lot of power and good handling and good brakes. And it'll take a bit of fine-tuning, but it won't be too far into the season. I think we'll be right there with the top.
George Fury will be joined in a second Peter Jackson Nissan by Glenn Seaton, while Queenslander Gary Scott will back up the drivers for the endurance events. After 16 months away from the spotlight of the Australian touring car scene, small car fans can rejoice this weekend, for no longer is Nissan missing.
And back at Amaroo Park for the Appendix J feature race, again over a distance of 5 laps, and again the Golden Oldies have their opportunity to blast around the 1.93 kilometres, and the driver that we look there at is number 34, Bruce Allen, in the little Mini. Cleaned them up in the preliminary, the Appendix J's, and the way things are shaping up, it looks like he might do it again. In fact, let's take a look at the grid, the top 12 in this event. Bruce Allen has pole position, 61.21. Alongside him, Greg Topfer in the EH Holden. On the second row, Robert Tweedy in the Mini did very well in the first heat. Frank Dartell alongside him in a similar little Mini brick. Row number 3 is Nigel Brennan and Mark Duquette in the Chev Nova. Row number 4, Bob Asher and Steve Trevica in the Valiant, of all things. Row 5 is Mike Dyer and Sam Peary in the Mini. And row number 6 is Chris Oxley and Brad Tilley. That's the top 12. There's 25 entries in this event. There'll be some traffic up the top of that hill.
Here's the man on pole position, drawing up to his allotted mark. Some wonderful machinery on the grid for the start of this race. They're coming from everywhere.
I know the feeling.
What happened to you, by the way?
No comment, no comment, and no comment.
Okay. I wondered.
I wasn't quite sure whether we're at Amaroo Park for the Group E race,
You
or
didn't know whether you were coming or going. What's changed?
Or at Liverpool for the Demolition Derby.
It gets a bit that way out there, doesn't it?
Yep.
Rough and tumble, particularly at Amaroo, because it is such a tight and twisting circuit, and all categories of racing here provide plenty of thrills. That's why they always draw such a terrific crowd, and today, for the first round of the Touring Car Championship and supporting cast, no exception.
I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our viewers across Australia today, also through TV New Zealand for the coverage of the Australian Touring Car Championship, and also to the United Kingdom for the coverage of same. We have viewers who have joined us from Western Australia, from the Northern Territory, all over Queensland, New South Wales, Australian Capital Territory, throughout Victoria, and a special hello to all our friends in Tasmania. Plan to bring you what we think will be a great start to the 1986 Australian Touring Car title from Sydney's Amaroo Park this afternoon. Walk down memory lane, though, for this event. 5 laps the distance, and the man to beat is going to be Bruce Allen. Flag is up. And it's down, and Bruce Allen gets across the grid quickly, but even quicker is Greg Topfer as he makes the run on the outside, heading up, but no, the Mini will get it, going up the hill for the first time. And just look at the Chevy Nova making such a great run up the hill. Mark Duquette as they crest the top of Skyline and drop into Dunlop Loop.
Well, that big charge didn't quite carry Duquette to the front, but it's taken him up into second place behind Bruce Allen. And, of course, he's got a ton of power, so it'll be interesting to see when they get down on the flatter stretch of the course at the back, whether or not he can pull in the little
there's
Mini
one
Cooper
going
race.
off. Oh, Valiant. They're not handling any better. Car number 27 has run off the track up at the top end.
Steve Trevica as Greg Topfer makes a dive on the inside at Honda Corner. Tries to go underneath the Chev Nova, couldn't pull the manoeuvre off, and the Minis are at it again. Look at the field, there's plenty of them. Some of those guys having a lot of trouble getting to an apex in the turn by the look of it.
I think the one to watch is going to be our second place driver, Mark Duquette, in the Chevy Nova, as he's got them backing up behind them like they're trying to make their way into the car park.
Well, it's got all the grunt, but it looks like he has his hands full trying to stop the thing up the top.
The legs aren't long enough. Across the line, 1 down, 4 remain in the Golden Oldies Appendix J feature race here at Amaroo Park. Mark Duquette following the race leader as they head to the top of the hill. There is the leader, Bruce Allen, in the little Mini. Fast qualifier, 61.21 yesterday.
Robert Tweedy in car number 79. The light blue Mini is starting to move up a little bit as well, and he was the driver that finished third in the prelim. And there's the car that we saw in the opening lap going off into the boonies. Bruce Allen, the leader, with a great gap. You can see just how big it is, probably 2.5 or even 3 seconds. And look at this bunch.
Oh, it's on here, down the inside of the Chevy. That's a bit of bossa nova for you. They come out of the bend and Greg Topfer goes through, takes over second as they head down towards the lake corner. Topfer goes into second and Mark Duquette in the Chevy Nova trying to keep all these minis at bay. Now, I think Duquette is going to find it tougher as this race progresses.
7 minis, in fact, started in this race. So they've got a fair hand in it, including the race lead at the present time by a big space. Topher in second place, then Duquette in the Chevy Nova, then 2 minis side by side, 79, Robert Tweedy, and 48, Frank Dartel.
Over the top of Nissan Skyline, Topfer in the Holden. Mark Duquette, Chevy Nova, 69, and then the minis backing up behind him. Quite a good course for minis. It's very, very tight, uphill section, and this downhill section that brings them through this right-hander and then down to the left-hander at Honda Corner.
Leading division going away there, and the Chevy Nova looks about 3 miles wide to these guys at the moment.
They wouldn't know where to pass it.
Well, they've got no chance of passing him right here because he's drawing away under power coming down to the corner. Now they'll close up a little as the braking starts into the lake. Well, into the lake, but round the corner.
Anything's possible at Amaroo. Is Mark Duquette being harried here by 3 minis through Wonderlick Corner. And once again, back across the line and up towards Bitchapave Hill. 2 laps to go. This is the frustrating part of the course, obviously, for the mini drivers, because that Chevy V8 just out-accelerates them up the top, goes through this corner, and then it's hard on the brakes. Watch this. Little Mini 79 ranges up. Can't do much about it until Duquette gets the Nova straight. And as soon as he does, of course, he takes off down through this part of the track.
There'll be some fun and games coming up because the oil flags are at the next portion of the course after we come out of this left-hander. One of the golden oldies has had a big spit. Look at Tweedy darting through here as we go back to the leader, car number 34, Bruce Allen.
Well, Allen doing this very, very comfortably, stretching his lead all the time. There you can see it, the gap from the leader. Coming up with 1 lap to go. Nova still continues its battle, but for this man in 34, Bruce Allen, it's plain sailing, heading up Bitchapave Hill in front of the packed terraces, taking the left-hander at the top of Skyline and dropping down into Dunlop for the final circuit.
Greg Topher still holding down second place in car 88, the EH Holden, but a fair space behind this man. And another big gap to that Battle Royal, which continues for third place, involving Robert Tweedy in car 79, Frank Dartel in 48, and also Mark Duquette in the Chevy Nova. But he's looking a bit lonely out there, Bruce Allen. Not that he'd be complaining, I don't think. He hasn't had anybody breathing down his neck from the time the flag dropped.
And at least it's straight. Here's 69, Mark Duquette.
So he's recaptured third spot, Duquette. He did give it up briefly to car number 48, Frank Dartel. In fact, Dartel's having another go at him as they go into that corner, but here's the race winner. He will be in about 3 seconds as the flag drops for Bruce Allen in the Appendix J feature race here at Amaroo Park. Good effort. Unbeaten here today in this category. Bruce Allen. Greg Topher crosses the line in second place, and in third place it was car 48. Frank Dartel getting the best of that race-long scrap with Robert Tweedy and Mark Duquette for the minor position. No doubts, though, about the race winner. Acknowledging the crowd as he does a wind-down lap of Amaroo Park.
I tell you what, he did that well. Topher, not a bad job at all for second because he had to break through late in the race.
It's as close as he's ever been.
Let's recap the placings for you on the Castrol scoreboard. Allen the winner. Topher will take second place. Dartel takes third. On the other side of the break, we'll talk to a motor racer who goes round in circles occasionally. welcome back to our coverage of the Australian Touring Car Championship. You know, our regular visits to Amaroo Park always unearth the hometown heroes, names like Terry Finnegan, Ken Matthews, Brian Callahan and even Barry Graham. And for Barry Graham, he hit the jackpot only a fortnight ago, but in a different category of motor racing. Just as the James Hardy 1000 is the touring car event on the national calendar each year, the Marlborough Grand National is oval track racing's enduro equivalent. One driver who can put both classics into perspective is 35-year-old Sydney racer Barry Graham, who lined up recently at Sydney's Liverpool Raceway for his 13th try at the Grand National. Graham and his Formula team turned speedway sedan racing inside out a decade ago when they produced the sport's first IMSA sedan, an absolute showstopper, but it never won the Grand National. The basic difference between the James Hardy 1000 and the Marlborough Grand National actually deals with the qualifying and the preparation time afforded the drivers. At Mount Panorama at Bathurst, the drivers have 3 days to build up. The track doesn't change. It's asphalt. It's the same every day. And come Sunday morning for the start of the James Hardy 1000, the track is exactly the same as the first lap of practice cut by the drivers. The Liverpool Grand National is a little bit different. It's held on one night of competition, and the track, it changes all night. Qualifying time trials were the first obstacle for all drivers to overcome. American Rodney Combs set the early pace in the Valvoline Firebird, although the racetrack was still a little wet. Combs, a former Bathurst entrant, has few peers on the super speedways in America, and he's a dirt track master. Tasmanian Gene Cook had won the Marlborough Classic 3 times previously, once on dirt and twice on pavement, and his TAA Avanti seemed well and truly on the pace. Graham's qualifying lap was smooth. He makes few mistakes at the best of times, but on this occasion he was the 8th fastest qualifier of the 41 time trialers, and under the inverted start system for the $30,000 100-lapper, that meant a front row starting spot.
A bit of a turnaround from previous years when we've been fairly much the fast boy on the block and been up front, and with the inverted 8, it's not how I set out. I would like to set fast time just for my own sake, but let's put us down there on the outside front row, which is fairly good for a 100-lap race.
The Century Circle Classic field was set, and Graham wasted little time dispensing with the formalities. He outdragged John Leslight into the first half lap and immediately began to set a handy lead. American Rodney Combs and Australian champion Paul O'Neill had it all to do in the traffic, which was particularly heavy in the opening laps. Fastest qualifier Walter Giles and Gene Cook looked smooth as they made their way towards the top 5, but Graham was building his lead all the time. Combs' hopes of a second win in the Grand National were dashed when he was involved in a skirmish. Having a hood flapping at half-mast is definitely a no-no, and the American was to lose 2 laps in the pits, rectifying the problem. Graham continued to play the game of hare and tortoise with the faster cars. He relinquished the lead to Paul O'Neill, figuring the race had every chance of going to the wire without a stoppage and that everyone would be low on fuel. O'Neill lasted till lap 91 and headed to the infield with magneto trouble, and the Sydney speedster then clapped on the pace to lead home Queenslander Darren Munro by a lap, with a further 2 circuits back to Rodney Combs. The Formula team had finally won the Grand National after 12 previous challenges. Graham took the lion's share of the $30,000 purse and was delighted. His cat and mouse game had paid off.
We knew we weren't the fastest car, but we reckon the last 50 laps were the ones that we wanted to be around for. We set up for the end of the race, and we're content to bide our time and see what happened.
Well, you've been able to achieve, I guess, a racing ambition to win the big one as far as the oval track. What's there left now for Barry Graham?
Well, there's a mountain up around Bathurst that's looking pretty good. That's got me in the last few years, and it'd be sure good to knock that one off when you're not the favourite.
And while Barry Graham is already planning ahead for this year's James Hardy 1000, the American oval track scene is hotting up. Daytona 500 winner Jeff Bodine went for the double last weekend as he paced the 31-car field for the Richmond 400 in Virginia. Terry Labonte dropped quickly into second before the guardrail gyration started in earnest. Bill Elliott brought out the yellow when he bonsaied his Ford and was out of the race. Some fine-tuning was also required on Ron Bouchard's Valvoline Chevy to get it back in the race, while Dale Earnhardt was obviously looking for some roadside service to wipe his windshield. 2 laps to go and Dale Earnhardt thought he had the race won. But no way, said national champ Darrell Waltrip. He found a beautiful inside edge coming off the second turn. It was a winning move until Earnhardt tapped Darrell, who triggered off a chain reaction praying, and the Richmond 400 finished under a yellow and checkered flag. The win going to Kyle Petty over Joey Ruttman and Dale Earnhardt. You can expect more of the same when the NASCAR boys come to Australia in November for the $1 Million Oval Show at Melbourne's new look, Calder Raceway.
Back at Amaroo Park, the big bangers are on the track for the Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series round 1, and we're going to see some speed, we're going to see some action in this race because they've had the off-season, these fellows, to tinker with the cars and get them potent and get them red hot for the opening meeting of the season. And Mike Griffin has come up with pole position in 51.99, which is about 1/100th of a second quicker than Bob Tyndall, who'll sit alongside him on the front row of the grid. So there's not much, you couldn't put the proverbial sheet of paper between the two of them, and I think it's pretty much the same for the top dozen positions on the grid. Although Bob Tyndall's not going to make it. I'll be blowed. No, some last-minute damage to his car, and we're not going to see him take his place. So Mike Griffin will come off the front row on his own, and Des Wall and Bill Attard will share the second row, followed by Bob Jolly and Laurie Attard, then Ian Stones and Keith Carling, John Vernon and Albert Siders, and then Robin Doherty up from Victoria, and Neville Davies, just the top 12 there in a field, a capacity field of 25 starters, 24 starters in fact.
Apparently, Gary, the car of Mike Griffin's had a coming together with the Tyndall car. Bob's car coming off the worst for wear, although the front of the Mazda's not too flush, as you can well see.
It's got some 100-mile-an-hour tape on it there, so it might hang together. Not far away from the start of round 1 of the Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series from Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway.
Of last year's top 4, it's only Griffin who's in the first couple of rows of this field.
Flag is up, ready for the start. And they get off to a good start, and Griffin makes a lightning start. But Attard goes with him on the inside. And one to get away very quickly indeed was Laurie Attard as they streak up to the top of Bitchapave Hill for the first time, drop over the top of Nissan Skyline and head down now into the right-hander. And Griffin has lost the lead. They sweep through the right-hander, reverse camber corner, make their way now onto the back straightaway. Jolly doing it very, very nicely indeed. Has taken over the lead, and he'll head down through Mazda corner. So Bob Jolly of Victoria doing it nicely. Downhill, the run to the left-hander at Honda corner. Then the throttle is down all the way to the floor as they run out of the turn and down past the lake corner to the right-hander. The rest of the field through that corner safely.
That's not bad from the third row of the grid, is it?
Not bad at all. The short straight up to Wonderlic corner. Bob Jolly. I'll bet he is. Coming out of the turn across the line, 1 down, 9 remain. Griffin giving chase in the Mazda, heading up Bitchapave Hill. The rest of the field goes by. There's the man setting the pace in front. Beautifully turned out car. He certainly got to grips with this very tight Amaroo Park layout. The Victorian doing well. Griffin giving chase though. It's not over yet. The nip-on entry. Uh-oh, it's over for 747.
Graham Noland, and climbs out the side of the cockpit. Appears to be okay, but he's certainly upended it. I can't work out where it is at the moment.
It's on its lid. He's okay. He just wants to make sure that the engine's off. They haven't got the pump going at the same time. But he's okay. He exits the field in rather spectacular circumstances. Here's the race leader. 2 down, 8 remain. Bob Jolly of Victoria streaks up Bitchapave Hill, opening that gap all the time. the top of Skyline. Mike Griffin still giving chase, though.
Griffin's a little closer this time. This was the original RX-7 brought to Australia, the first car that came into the country as a show car for Mazda. It's been through all categories of racing. Yeah, it's been through hell. It's been a Group E car, it's been a touring car, and it's now a sports sedan.
I'll tell you what, Griffin's getting a little closer this time to Jolly. The walls around, a little under brakes, the left-hander at Honda corner. And we'll see what the Mazda's got left. No, out of that turn, Jolly really stretches it down to here. Griffin closes up under brakes.
Notice the driver's dodging the oil down that back straight there.
There's the short run, the right-hander.
Bill Attard in third place in car number 11, another RX-7. There he goes. The paintwork looking a little bit more in touch than is the case for Mike Griffin. Bob Jolly continues to lead over the top of the hill. A successful trip from Victoria for him if he can stay there in front at this stage. Car number 38 is Des Wall. He's in fourth place. That's a Tirana, in case you don't recognise it.
This is hard to recognise a few of these cars that are decked out in sports sedan trim. Been back to fifth.
Laurie Attard in a Capri. You can tell by the window styling there. But up front, still Bob Jolly from Victoria.
They come out of Wonderlick corner. Across the line. And Bob Jolly opening a gap now on Mike Griffin to the top of Bitchapave Hill. Nissan Skyline. Going to drop down to Dunlop Loop. Griffin, we thought, would be very, very hard to beat in this race here today at Amaroo Park. He's a local, knows the track very well indeed. Bob Jolly, the Victorian, has got to grips with the circuit very well indeed. Car is handling beautifully. He seems to be running away with his opening round of the Camalco Wonderlick Sports Sedan Series from the Annan Grove circuit. To the left-hander.
Sorry, Mike, 4 rounds in this series as well. April 6, round 2, May 25, round 3, and June 22, the final round, all on 7 Sport in 1986. Watching Mike Griffin in second, we can see the gap between the leader and Griffin, and I think Jolly's got it pretty well in hand at the moment. Gee, the front does look second-hand in that car. She's had a nice old nudge on the front left. Whew. There's nothing like the thunder of a big V8.
Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? Yes, the scream of the RX-7, certainly a different sound.
Well, Jolly's just done a 52.94. It's a little off his practice pace, but nevertheless sufficient to lead the event quite comfortably.
Tearing around Amaroo's tortured tarmac, Bob Jolly comes down to the left-hander at Honda corner. Griffin a little closer this time. Here's an old Wilco line.
Yes, it's a very convoluted strip of bitumen here at Amaroo. And it takes some coming to grips with, certainly in a big car like this.
Now do that in English for us, Wilco.
Jolly through the turn. Comes along the straight at Amaroo Park. Lap still on his side. Griffin, if he can do it, still has time to be able to pull back the leader, but I don't think he's going to be able to.
4 laps remaining, Mike.
Bill Attard still in third place. There's the leader going through, probably about 50 or 60 metres back to second. Similar gap back to Attard. There he is.
Looking job, isn't it, Attard's RX-7?
Very nice indeed. Qualified at a 52.28. Only about 4 or 5 100ths off the qualifying time set by Griffin.
And behind this bunch, we've got Des Wall in the orange Tirana, and there he is. 400 plus brake horsepower at the rear wheels of this, what looks to be a Tirana, although there's not much of it left, I can tell you. Ahead of Attard in the Capri Car 70.
And actually the man in that group, in the little Mazda, is in fact Keith Carling, the third in the group, and he has been charging this lot here for about 4 or 5 laps. He's got on the pace the last 2 circuits. And they work their way to the top of Bitchapave Hill again. So a couple of little scraps going on in midfield. We're trying to cover them for you. There's Carling. He's looking for... Oh, he got a little sideways that time.
Don't want to get stuck down on the inside there. The nose missing off the car.
Tirana, Capri and RX-7 doing battle here for 4th, 5th, 6th place. And the Camalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series round 1.
Good scrap here. There's our race leader doing it nicely, Bob Jolly.
Passing a slower car, both he and Mike Griffin holding down second place still.
Over the top of Vitchepave, down to Dunlop. Here's Mike Griffin. He hasn't given up the chase after Jolly. He's got close, or probably up to about 10 or 20 metres on occasion. I think the straight line horsepower of Jolly's car is coming into play down the back part of the course and certainly up Vitchepave Hill.
Tell you what, he might have a last desperate go here. I think Mike Griffin, he's keen to get on to Bob Jolly's tail. But, as you said before, whether or not he's got sufficient time left is in serious doubt, because the last lap board is about to go out.
Well, the adrenaline's certainly pumping now for Bob Jolly. Coming up with a win over the local yokels at Amaroo Park is quite a feat. He heads up Vitchepave Hill and drops into Dunlop Loop for the final time. Griffin closing all the time. Griffin that time takes a very wide apex, and we'll see whether or not he can close. He's definitely getting quicker. Oh, lap car coming up. He holds his position on the racetrack. Both of them should be through. This is Griffin's chance.
Jolly was smart, dive for the inside, and Griffin's going to have to work his way around with brake horsepower or sheer talent. He doesn't have the horsepower. Has he got the talent?
I think horsepower's outgunned him in the run down here to the lake for the final time, because Bob Jolly comes out of the bend. And here they come across the line. Bob Jolly is going to go on and win it. Mike Griffin is going to take second out of that. And Attar will take third.
So the field crosses the line, and Griffin a last-minute lunge. Confirmation of placings, and Bob Jolly the winner in car number 3, the Commodore. Second placing, of course, going to the Mazda, driven by Mike Griffin. And in third position, Attar, car number 11, the Mazda RX-7. We'll be back with more after this break.
Well, again, quite a race to open the season for the sports sedans here at Amaroo Park in the Camalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series. The first round, and the visitor from Victoria, Bob Jolly, where are you? Come around here. I can see the sash out of the corner of my eye, which he's wearing with rightful pride. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Bob, you raced here last year, but not with quite the same flair that we saw today. You've got that car really running.
A little bit more practice, a little bit more horsepower, a bit more confidence, a few more early nights. It all adds up to getting turned on, so to speak.
Tell me, you seem to have it parcelled up with a very clear lead going into the last couple of laps, but on the last lap, Mike Griffin really closed up in a hurry. I mean, were you easing off, or did he pull out something a bit extra?
Well, he definitely pulled out a little extra, for sure. I might have made the wrong choice of compound in tyres also. But I think Mike found himself an extra 40 or 50 horsepower, actually. And, of course, he's hard to beat at any time, so I was fairly lucky.
This category of car really get the fans going. I think the big deep-throated roar, the V8s, and I think they look the part as well, don't they?
Have to be, yeah. I think the class has got to kick on, so to speak. But, our biggest problem is just getting enough fast vehicles.
Joe Caballa is here from Camalco Wonderlic to make the presentation on a well-earned victory.
Thanks, Joe.
Fine effort, Bob. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of Camalco Wonderlic Windows, I'd like to present you with that trophy.
Thank you very much.
Wish you all the best in future years to come.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. I'd like to thank the organisers of AADC for putting on a great meet. This is a fantastic venue. You've got it for all different departments. You've got the good driving circuit, and it's also good for the smaller cars with the downhill run. It's also very good for spectators. So.
I think we're going to see you back again and again and again by the sound of it.
Well, I think so.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you very
Bob
much.
Jolly, winner of the opening round of the Camalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park. We'll be back after this break with the Goodyear Car Owners Club Racer Series. The This book was released around Australia this week, Australian Touring Car Championship, 25 fabulous years. And I'll tell you what, there'll be more than 25 hours, 25 weeks of fabulous reading about the history of the championship in Australia. And it's a great privilege to have 3 of the past winners out of that fabulous 25 years here with us today. Bob Jane, Bill Pitt and Pete Gagan. And I'm going to have to refer to notes because these guys have got such a great record. Bill Pitt, first of all. Bill, you won the second championship, I think it was 61 in a Jag. Things have changed a bit since then.
Drastically, yes. It's a little resemblance to the my day.
For the better or the worse?
I think everything is for the better, and particularly technically it is far better. And it's proved that touring cars are the crowd pleasers, and I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's certainly still true today, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Bob Jane, good to see you. 4-time winner, Jaguar, a couple of times, and then Mustang,
and then Camaro.
And then Camaro.
Yeah.
So you had the complete coverage there, didn't you?
Yeah, I had, 11 years of touring car racing there.
Fantastic stuff. Do you agree with Bill that it's, well, obviously still is the big crowd puller, isn't it?
Well, of course, and as Bill said, the cars are getting better and technically better, and you're getting a little engine with big horsepower in, and I were talking before about the new turbos. You're getting, 4-cylinder engines with 350 horsepower, and we couldn't get that from Jaguars 20 years ago.
And Pete, 5-time winner, fantastic effort. Good to see you here as well, and I hope you're enjoying today's racing as well. I hope the 3 of you are, and it's great to have you with us, and I know all the fans are going to be interested to just go back over your exploits again when they read through this book, the Australian Touring Car Championship.
Gary, I might say that in that book there's some unbelievable photographs, things that they've had to go and find that no one's ever seen before. So the value of that book is really in those unique photographs.
Okay, Bob Jane, thanks very much. Now here's Mike Raymond.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. Some of the stars from the past in the Australian Touring Car Championship Series. And, of course, we're here at Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway today to cover round number 1 of the 1986 series. And there's a huge crowd in attendance here today at Amaroo Park Raceway. Last year, of course, the championship started with only meagre fields. First of all, the opening round at Winton in Victoria. It steadily grew throughout the season. Tom Walkingshaw and the Jags arrived at Bathurst. Peter Brock homologated the new Commodore and is going international this year. Everyone's aware of that. And, of course, on the 7 Network, we'll be covering the exploits of Peter Brock and Alan Moffat as they take off overseas to contest the opening round of the European Touring Car Championship in 3 weeks' time, the opening round being at Monza in Italy. There's only a section of the packed crowd as the cars come out onto the circuit now to prepare for round 1 of the Goodyear Car Owners Club Series for the Ford Lasers. The distance of today's race is 8 laps. A lot of rewards for the drivers contesting this year's series. It's been very strongly backed by Chevy at Wheels, by Century Batteries and by Valvoline, the Goodyear Car Owners Club Series. And Peter Dane, who was so successful last year, winds up this year with the sponsorship from the Goodyear Car Owners Club. So he's got the double whammy, Neil Crompton.
It's been a great effort from him. Finished last year's championship with 71 points up his sleeve ahead of Ken Douglas, who this year becomes the technical advisor to the Laser Series. And Mark Gibbs has moved on to Group E racing. Young Mark Scaife still out there in car number 2. So this one should be a beaut one. Steve Williams is a fellow who I think's got a lot of talent. He's in the second car here in the orange and white colours. He's been showing a lot of promise towards the end of the 85 series.
I think we might take a second out. Take a look at the grid, how the cars will line up this afternoon. On pole position is 41 Peter Dane. From 2, car number 11 is Steve Williams. From 3, car number 2, Mark Scaife. From 4, 17, Andrew Harris. From 5, car number 24, Baron Robertson. From 6 is 19, Graham Blanche. From 7, car 10, Richard Gartner. From 8, 42, David Morton. From 9, car number 90, Benny Ruggles. From 10, car number 38, Ian Poosty. From 11, number 77, Garth Downing. And rounding out the top 12, 51 is Dennis Rogers. So 12 starters. I would have thought the organisers may have planned, considering the rewards for these drivers. And let's face it, there's a lot more prize money at stake here for the Goodyear Series for this year than a lot of the other major car events that we follow during the course of the year. I'm sure that the fields will grow during the course of the series.
I had a car accident there once from Garth Downing. No, it was Rath Downing, that's right.
In case you're confused, you're in good company. Okay, so the lovely ladies along from Goodyear to warn the drivers prior to the start. As I mentioned, the series put together by Goodyear in association with Chevy and Century Batteries and, of course, Valvoline. Some great racing to come. 8 laps. It's a sprint event. Peter Dane in pole position. We're about 10 seconds away from the start of the opening round for 1986. The flag is up. Keep your eyes on Peter Dane. And they're racing, and Dane gets away quickly, but Williams goes with him on the outside, grabs another gear, but I think Dane will probably win the drag to the top of Bitchapay for the first time. Mark Scaife also making a good start on the inside of the second row, and rounding them up quickly is Baron Robinson, and he's looking for a place to park here on the inside. He couldn't pass, so he almost had to park it. They drop down into Dunlop. Uh-oh, race leader under siege. A little bit of fiberglass, never hurt anyone. They go through Dunlop and make the exit out of the turn, now onto the back straight. They've all managed to get through there, the 12 contestants, and they run down now towards Mazda Corner, where we find Steve Williams has taken over the lead. And that will certainly put plenty of pressure on Peter Dane, the pole sitter. Here they come down to the left-hander at Honda Corner. Williams through, followed by Dane, and there's the rest of the field going through now.
Well, Scaife's come up very quickly. I think Peter Dane got a shock when Steve Williams attacked him at the first corner up the top of the hill. Took a little bit of the headlight assembly with him on the way. So now Dane has to settle himself back down and get back on with the job of trying to regain the lead. He's proven it once today, that he has the talent to be able to lead this field. Mark Scaife's very well positioned as well in third place there in the red car, and those 3 drivers have opened up an enormous gap over the rest of the field.
Little drafting going on here as Williams leads to the top of Nissan Skyline, and who will win the drag down into the right-hander. It's going to be Steve Williams. Look at Scaife down on the inside. They come out of the turn, and providing Williams drives very tight lines here, he's going to make it very difficult for Dane, and all the time Scaife is closing on the pair of them. Coming down hill, this time to the left-hander at Honda Corner.
Well, Dane's all over him like a cheap suit. He's giving him plenty to worry about at the moment. Williams gets out on the ripple strips.
Well, Dane's committed here on the outside.
He's been locked out too. He can't come back in again because Scaife is there.
Is that the death seat, Wilco?
That's the death seat.
I can vouch for it.
You can't win from there.
Okay, Williams doing it nicely coming out. Scaife hasn't got enough horsepower to go on with it, or has he? Oh, this will be tight.
Oops.
Dane.
Wheels up, Mother Brown.
Across the line. 2 down, 6 remaining, and Steve Williams with plenty of pressure on him from Peter Dane, heading up Bitchapay Hill again to the top of Nissan Skyline. They crest the left-hander and drop down into the right-hander. There's the leaders going through, and the next bunch back behind them. Car number 24 going through, Baron Robertson. He made a good start.
Then
back
Andrew
there
Harris
in 4th.
In 17 follows him.
Graham Blanche in the green and white car.
And then car number 10, Richard Gartner, going through.
This is where the dice is. There's Robertson, Harris going through, and meantime up at the lead we find that Peter Dane is still trying to work away by Steve Williams. He's tried the outside run through that corner. That didn't work. Scaife moved right up on the inside of him, and it's a matter of who's got a bit of acceleration up here. Dane wasn't giving Scaife a chance there. Doesn't have to, mind you. Pit boards go out to the drivers, and they head up Bitchapay Hill again. And if anything, Williams has opened that gap up just a little over Peter Dane, and Mark Scaife is getting closer to Dane as they go over the top and drop down to Dunlop.
Well, I think Williams has realised pretty early on in the season that aggression is going to be the better part of valour in this series for 1986, and that was the way it was right off the grid, and he knew that he had to get the best of Peter Dane from the jump or he wasn't going to get it at all.
There's 30 points for a win in today's first round of the 9-round series. The cars will run between Calder, Amaroo Park and Oran Park. There's $1,500 up for a win in this particular race and $3,000 up for the series win. Buy another car, I think.
You stay out of them. I promised your mum and dad you couldn't. Okay, heading down to the right-hander at the lake. Still Steve Williams. Peter Dane very, very close this time, and Scaife right behind him picking up the back wheel. That's not bad money.
Steve surprised me. He's really hung on to this one. I thought that Dane was going to be able to outfox him there in the opening couple of laps, but he's really showing his mettle. It's a great job, and Mark Scaife doing an excellent job as well. Last year voted the best newcomer, got the encouragement award from Goodyear. And look at Peter Dane now as he challenges across the top, looks for the run down the inside, but that rapidly becomes the outside as they plunge to the Dunlop loop. Williams knows how to cover his territory.
He's not doing a bad job of that. Uses all of the track at the exit point. And now you find he'll use a very tight line through Mazda.
Well, there's a tally-ho paper separating first and second at the moment. Nothing between them. Oh, look at Dane. Oh, Steve Williams, 2 wheels through the turn.
That, of course, is going to catch Dane out again on the outside. Now, if Scaife has got enough to slip down the inside, oh, this will be a brave move if it works. I bet it doesn't.
He's going to have to watch himself because Mark Scaife will happily take that second place, and that's exactly what he wants to do. Now moves up on the inside. He'll have the line for the corner. It'll be flat out through here in third gear. Scaife looks sideways. He knows he's got it, and Mark Scaife from the central coast of New South Wales up for second. So the order: Williams, Scaife and Dane, 1, 2, 3.
Poor Peter Dane has tried every move in the book to get to the lead past Williams again.
And none of them have worked.
None of them have, but at least he's tried every one. Now he's got to take Scaife back, and I think Dane's car probably has a little more grunt than Scaife's laser. But he'll have to work hard at it to try and pull back second place. Down the back straight towards the right-hand kink at Mazda corner. Williams still leading, Scaife in second. That's how close Dane is.
Cars in this series are the KA and KB Ford lasers as Dane plunges on the outside again, looking for a way round the outside of Mark Scaife. He's going to have to do it the long way no matter how he does it, unless Scaife makes a mistake, and he doesn't appear as though he's going to.
Unless he climbs in through the boot.
The guys in the lasers have been known to do that before.
I think he's Peter Dane feinting a pass here. Went down the outside, was going to try and get back on the inside from the exit. But that didn't work. Scaife had all the tracks covered.
Well, while they're involved in that battle, they're allowing the fourth place car to get a bit closer.
And the leading car to get away. Williams is loving this up front in car number 11.
Baron Robinson, the next man through in the dark coloured car there. Car number 24. So he's enjoying watching the scrap through the windscreen at the moment, because he knows the longer they keep on playing silly games, the more likely he is to reel in some territory. Dane that time got the back of the front wheel drive laser sideways, which is not an easy trick.
They come down towards Mazda again, and Dane very close indeed.
These cars are virtually stock standard. They have a roll cage in them, a safety harness quite obviously. They must carry a fire extinguisher. They must comply with Group E production car regulations. The only difference from these and an ordinary Group E car is they can change front brake pad material, a new front shock absorber, and that's about the strength of it. You can go racing.
Battle going on for 4th, 5th and 6th is pretty tight as well, as we see Williams untroubled in front, then Scaife and Dane still doing battle for 3rd. And behind them, with 1 lap remaining, a real ding-dong going on to try and get themselves sorted out. Under 2 Ks to go.
They're giving Steve Williams a pit signal, 66.8 his lap time. It doesn't really matter what time it is because he's in the lead. Now, can Dane get second placing back? He has another lash across the top. Very tidy and sensible drive from Steve Williams. I think he was 5th in last year's championship. He's off to a good start in 86.
Here they come. Steve Williams, Mark Scaife running in second, and Peter Dane.
Oh, gee, almost brought himself undone there, right at the death.
Well, he's got 5 or 6 car lengths between himself and Scaife. No need to throw it away at this stage.
Last move coming up by Peter Dane, whether he can pass Mark Scaife coming out of this bend. They're almost side by side. Is Dane going to keep on with it? Yes, he is. And here he comes. Oh, ho, ho. Here they come out of the bend, but Williams will taste victory. Second place across the line will go to Scaife, and Peter Dane will pick up 3rd place.
And they did it without exchanging paint, which wasn't bad.
Well, a good result to the Goodyear Car Owners Club Laser Series, round number 1 today at Amaroo Park Raceway. Let's check the placings on the Castrol scoreboard. The win going to Steve Williams. Second place going to Mark Scaife. And third goes to Peter Dane. There's more Amaroo action when we return.
And the congratulations are due to Steve Williams. Good effort.
Thanks,
In
Gary.
fact, terrific effort.
Thank you.
I think that the ranks seem to be a bit thinner in this category this year, but I don't think it's any less aggressive for that.
Oh, no, it's still pretty aggressive. Had a couple of moments down there, but the only thing is to stay in there and keep on the pressure and just go for it.
Well, I was going to say, I think you adopted the correct philosophy right at the outset. If you're going to win in this category, you've got to be up there right from the time the flag drops.
Oh, it's no good qualifying down around the third row. You've got to qualify in the first two, and I was lucky enough this morning to qualify fifth and get up in the second was what I was aiming at. And I got the jump and I just went for it. It was as simple as that. Just drive your hardest and keep it within reason.
I think it probably worked in your favour that that Peter and Mark were having their own duel behind you, and you therefore got a pretty trouble-free run in front.
Yeah, that's what I aimed at. Keep making sure that while those two are playing with each other, I had enough ground to go for it, and make sure I get a bit of a lead on.
Still managed to get a little bit out of shape down there at Honda on the last lap, though.
I was trying there.
You were trying real hard.
The boys sneaking up, and I thought, oh no.
Well, I think from memory you finished fifth in this series last year.
Yeah, that's right. We had a few incidents last year of different things, and we started to come good in the last two rounds, and unfortunately it wasn't good enough, but I was lucky enough to manage to win the first round here last year at Amaroo, so I do hope to win plenty more. And I'd like to take this chance where I could. There's a lot of people to thank, but Channel 7 probably couldn't give me enough time. I'd like to thank Johnny Williams and the boys from WCs and Mal Rose, HB World of Products, Gardoon Auto Electrics, and Ross McKenzie for looking after the preparation of the bodywork, and of course not forgetting Swan Motors. As far as I'm concerned, without Swan Motors I would not be here today. And thanks a lot, Swannies. As far as I'm concerned, you're the best Ford dealer in Australia.
Well, you've done a great job for them. Congratulations. Victory in the opening round of the Goodyear Car Owners Club Series to Steve Williams.
Thanks, Gary.
Right now, we join Mike Raymond because we've got plenty more action coming up as our telecast unfolds here from Amaroo Park this afternoon, our first meeting of the new motor race season.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. Well, not only the drivers are reaping the rewards here today at Amaroo Park. Anthony Moore, a young photographer from South Australia, has won Castrol's Photographer of the Year series. And Anthony, you look pretty proud, and you've got $4,000 to your credit. That's not a bad start.
No, it isn't, and I'm really proud to have won it. It was quite unexpected, but I'm really pleased to have won it, and I'd like to thank the project group and Ray Burkhouse especially for using my photos and accepting my material.
Now, Ray Berghouse told me that you won out of 5,000 entries. That's incredible, and we're looking now at the photograph that has won you, in fact, $4,000. How much effort do you put into your photography, your motorsports photography?
A great deal. I go in at hammer and nails, and so to speak, and I really enjoy it. It's a great relief from the construction work that I do.
Yes, you're in the construction business. How much time off do you get to take your photographs?
Very little. A lot of overtime's worked in the construction industry, and it's really good to get away from it, to get into the motorsport and enjoy it.
Well, Roger Lyle from Castrol to pass on some... gee, I wouldn't mind that myself, Roger.
Yeah, congratulations, Tony. Superb efforts for one who uses the photography as a hobby. It's really great to see. Well done, mate.
It's really proud. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. That's not bad, $4,000, eh? We'll follow his career and see what develops. In the meantime, the Formula V's about ready to come out on the track, and Bernie and the boys are going to iron the bugs out.
Welcome back to Amaroo Park. More Formula V action on the front row of the grid. We've got Stephen David with Michael Cars-Cadden. Second row, Bernie Hanley, Frank Kleinig. Third row, David Smith, David Cutts. Fourth row, Norm Johnston, Chris Lewis. The fifth row, Brian Phillips, Peter Laddix. And row 6, Dennis Gillespie and Gerard Mannion. A full field of 24 starters. It's round 1 of the series.
And we bid farewell to Adelaide. Our viewers on ADS will catch you for the replay next weekend, next Saturday afternoon, of course, at 4:45.
The flag drops, and car number 2, Stephen David, sitting on pole position, comes away very cleanly in the 40-odd brake horsepower Formula V. All of these machines identically powered, different chassis, but they must conform to very rigid specifications. Now, across the top of the hill, the new leader, Bernie Hanley. Where did he come from? From third to first. Oh, and one backs off, heading out towards the outside of Dunlop Loop the wrong way. Car number 16 is Chris Lewis, and rejoins once again. Hanley leading from Stephen David.
Down towards Honda Corner, and Bernie Hanley, who won the prelim earlier today, is in the best possible position at this stage. He leads the field down to the right-hander at the lake corner.
The black car number 3 is Frank Kleinig on the left-hand side of screen. Hanley, David, and Kleinig.
It's about the order they finished in the prelim earlier today at Amaroo Park, with Bernie Hanley going across the line. Pole sitter Stephen David still holding second. There he is in car number 2, and Frank Kleinig in the black number 3 car just tailing him as they go to the top of the skyline again.
Queenslander Ian Simpson took away this title from Bernie last year. As we look here at Frank Kleinig.
Good pass.
Nicely done. Gets out very wide though, might leave the gate open, but manages to scuttle back just in time.
I think that'll probably rouse Stephen David. He's got some chasing to do back towards the leaders. They're broken up into little groups, the swarming Vs. They head down to Honda Corner. I tell you what, no matter how much technology they put into Formula Vs, Bernie's car always looks the same, goes just as well, and he collects more trophies than anyone else.
Bernie's got quite a reasonable gap now as he comes into the late corner, and somebody there has bailed out of the car, exiting the tight right-hander. That's not a good place to park, is it?
Not at all. The flaggies are very quickly on the scene, telling all the drivers one time past there, they'll know the car's there for the rest of the race.
Henley leads. Kleinig. Stephen David is in 3rd place in the race as they go over the top of the hill once more, and the car holding down 4th spot at this stage is number 25, and that's Michael Kars-Cadden.
Or he was. David Smith up there now in the yellow car. Young Michael did a driving course with me out here at Amaroo Park about 6 months ago and showed a lot of promise. He's a pretty determined young driver.
Must have learned a bit more than some other people
that we know.
I knew this had happened.
Here's the scrap, number 8. Kars-Cadden right there behind him. They head down to the lake corner. They have their own little dice going. Looking for 5th place. Well, they're dicing for 5th anyway. There's the scrap. Bernie leading the crew. Oh, I tell you what, that worries me a little bit.
Worries you, it worries the owner.
The only reason that it worries me is last year they had a couple of Group E cars that were parked there, and then about the last lap, 3 guys who got the OPSM award all arrived and ran into the back of the car.
I tried to parallel park mine there at 110 kilometres an hour. It's no fun at all.
Here's the scrap. Frank Kleinig running in 2nd spot. Stephen David is 3rd. And bustling Bernie continues to lead the fleet.
Stephen David finished 3rd in last year's series. We look there on the right-hand side of the screen and see another car off the circuit. Kleinig under pressure.
Well, a few casualties haven't reduced the traffic all that much. Big field for this race, capacity field, in fact. And they're starting to come up on the tail enders now. Won't be long before they'll be getting into the slower traffic. There's one of them, the red car just going through.
Without a nose on the front of it, car number 87.
Sterling Craig driving a Prometheus.
I don't know where they come up with the names.
Glad you said that.
Bernie Hanley leads across the line, heading up Bitchapay. Frank Kleinig a little closer this time, and Stephen David is very, very close indeed to Frank Kleinig. Have a good race going here as they crest the top of Nissan Skyline and drop into the loop. I think Bernie does this at half-race distance, just takes a breather, lets them all catch up, and then blows them away for the remaining 5 laps. I mean, you can't really take Bernie seriously. Any man that dropped out to last and came back to win it in the last corner here last year. Great little performer. And despite the fact that he is a regular winner here, a regular winner wherever he races Formula Vs, poor old Bernie's still chasing all that sponsorship. There's one that's not going the full distance.
Robin Keatley from Victoria.
A long walk back. They're getting a bit closer to Bernie there. I think Frank Kleinig's starting to get serious about mounting some sort of a challenge.
Here they come across the line, up the hill at Amaroo Park. Now you can see how the field has thinned out just a little. We have been used to seeing the Formula V races here with about 5 or 6. Yes, we've had a change of position at the top of the hill, and Frank Kleinig goes through the lead.
Halfway mark, 5 laps to go.
Oh, Bernie does this all the time. He knows what television exposure is all about. And don't be surprised if he can come back. Stephen David making overtures. Bernie just pokes the nose down to let Kleinig know he's going to have a race for 5 anyway. David's car a little smoky. They run downhill into the left-hander. And coming out of the bend, David closes right up on the tail of Bernie Hanley. Thinks about a shot down here on the inside. Bernie says, just sit in behind here and go for the draft for a lap or so. Frank Kleinig in car number 3, the Mako, comes out of Kamalko Wunderlich turn, back across the start-finishing line and up the hill. And Bernie goes for it on the outside, to the top of the hill. Oh, look at David trying to just poke a wheel in there and get in with it.
I think he might have done it too.
Yes, he has. And guess who's in front again?
Yeah, and
with
guess
4
who's
to
second?
go. Stephen David, the poor guy that took all the chances early. Frank Kleinig has now been shuffled back to 3rd. And whether David's got enough to go on with Hanley, we'll have to wait and see. They take the run downhill now to Honda Corner. Oops, Kleinig down under the inside and takes back 2nd. That's how easy it all happens.
It's really time to blink around this circuit at Amaroo Park, particularly in these little cars.
Just think a lap ago, David was making all the moves on Bernie Hanley. And now he's back to 3rd place again. And the Supervet is back in front.
Oh, gee, they've streeted the rest of the field.
Have they what? You couldn't get enough money on Hanley from here, could you, Walker?
I wouldn't think so. He's got a little bit too much experience, I think.
He's got the staying power. Great scrap going on for 2nd because Kleinig wants that back. Thank you very much. And David says he wants a bit of it too coming out of the corner. But a good line, good exit line there from Frank Kleinig. Sees him back into 2nd. And Stephen David with it all still to do.
Notice we've got 3 radically different body shapes here, and the end result is 3 identical cars in terms of performance. And Bernie's car, of course, is just about as old as Bernie. Identical 1200cc Volkswagen engines, standard suspension and brakes, standard Volkswagen wheel size on radial tyres.
Man running 3rd there in car number 2, Stephen David, is the lap record holder here in Formula V.
Coming across the line with about 2 laps remaining. Here's David making his move again on Frank Kleinig. That's where the action is as they go to the top of Bitchepave. Kleinig back. And David pops in for 3rd as they go through the loop and now down the back part of the course. About a lap and a half remaining. 3 Mazda and 2 Honda now. A good way to start the season for Bernie Hanley, the prelim and the main. He's in front with a lap and a quarter still to run. Kleinig getting closer. Whether or not he can mount a challenge on Bernie Hanley, we'll have to wait and see. Bernie mightn't appear to be the fastest Formula V driver in Australia. I'll guarantee there's not too many as smooth as the veteran. And he comes across to take the signal now with 1 lap to go. And coming straight up behind him again, Frank Kleinig and Stephen David. In fact, could be a little challenge on here on the inside. Yes, and Frank Kleinig takes back the lead. Don't blink anyone. There's still 3/4 of a lap to go.
Well, Bernie's really going to have to pull something out.
He's about to do it. Now, Kleinig will cover this little inside shot, will he? Down the inside. Here, look at David setting up for a big run around the outside. They're all in. Last left-hander coming up. And Kleinig goes in. Bernie's going to have to fight from here, though, let me tell you. Now, he's caught out again.
Stephen David's the man to watch here in car 2.
If he zips down the inside of Kleinig, I don't think he can do that. Bernie's going to go in deeper than anyone. They come into the lake turn, and they're all still fighting for racing room. Frank Kleinig, they're coming up to the last corner, almost 3 abreast. Kleinig will lead them out of the turn. And coming down to take the checkered flag, it will in fact be Frank Kleinig. He takes it. 2nd spot goes to Bernie Hanley, and 3rd place to Stephen David. And here's the 2nd group coming in to fill 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. Great race. the opening round of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula V Series here this afternoon at Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. And what a great last lap of the race. And of course, there were one or two incidents during the event, but they all basically centered around the group. Let's have a look at what happened early. They came into the first turn. Guy getting it around sideways.
That was car number 16, Chris Lewis, who backed his way out of the Dunlop loop. Round again, thank you. Put her in first gear and try again.
Yes, he was lucky to get away with that, and of course most of the field had already gone by. Let's check the Castrol scoreboard shortly to confirm the placings as they went across the line. No doubt about who's picked up victory though. I think Bernie Hanley thought he had it in the bag completely, but it hasn't worked out that way.
Well, where Kleinig came from, I do not know. He was back in third. Confirmation of placings on the Castrol scoreboard. The winner, Frank Kleinig. Second placing going to Bernie Hanley. And third placing, Stephen David. We've seen the winners, and Gary Wilkinson talks to them after this break.
Takes a good man to beat the old fox Bernie Henley around Amaroo Park. Frank Kleinig, congratulations.
Thanks, Gary. Well, I guess we give the little square head something to think about. Actually, I was going to borrow his speech because he's up here quite a lot and I'm not. I didn't have a prepared one. It was a bit race. I didn't know till the second last lap. You know, I had a reasonable chance.
I don't think anybody knew until the second last lap. There was quite a lot of jockeying for position there.
Well, that's what it's all about.
I guess so. I think Bernie writes the script for a lot of these races, and when you'd gone through 5 laps and suddenly you slipped through to take the lead, we thought it was Bernie just giving somebody a shot. But, gee, you really proved it in the final stages with Stephen David as well, boxing in there as well. Made it pretty tough.
Yeah, they kept me honest. I think I kept them honest. Us oldies are still there, aren't we?
Congratulations. Big effort to win the opening round of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Formula B Series here at Amaroo Park for 1986. Frank Kleinig, congratulations. Great effort. Now, here's Mike Raymond.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. And, of course, one race still to come prior to the Better Breaks 100, and that is, of course, the opening round of the Stallion Stable 2WS Group E Production Car Series here at Amaroo Park Raceway for the season. Mark Gibbs and Roland Hill will share the front row in their Commodores. And, of course, in the touring car title to come up a little later on the program, of course, if you've just tuned in, George Fury has stolen pole position for this afternoon's touring car opener. In fact, it'll be a turbo front row with George Fury on pole and, of course, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand in the turbo Volvo sharing the front row with him. One of the cars that didn't make it going back to the pits. And here's Mark Gibbs in the Commodore. He'll sit on pole for the Stallion Stable Radio 2WS event this afternoon. Just back behind him will be Roland Hill in the second of the Commodores. Commodores really found it hard in the early days of Group E. However, some changes have made it a little easier for them now. Bradley Jones just back behind them in the Perrier Starion. And the car's ready to come out of the pit area now as I speak. Don't forget the second round of the Australian Touring Car Championship will be for the Australian National Line Cup. And we'll be bringing it to you from Symmons Plains, Tasmania, next weekend. Also a round of the Western Underwriter Superbike Series. And all the local racing. I'm quite sure of our Tasmanian viewers down watching this afternoon will be hopping along to Symmons Plains. Should be a great dust up there next Sunday. And, of course, on the 7 Network, all our associated stations will be bringing you the live action from round 2 of the touring car title. 56 going through. Brett Youlden in the Commodore. Might be time to check out the grid, how they'll line up for this afternoon's stay in Stable 2WS Group E Production Car Series. Heat 2 from round 1. Pole position, car number 50, Mark Gibbs in the Commodore. From 221, Roland Hill in another Commodore. From 314, Bradley Jones in the Perrier Starion. From 4, number 10, Brian Potts in the Commodore. From 5-3, Peter Fitzgerald in the Starion. From 6-64, Des Gibbs in the Starion. From 7, car number 56, Brett Youlden in a Commodore. From 8-19, Peter Granger in a Cordia. From 9-77, John Burke in a Celica. From 10, number 9, Leo Gagan in a Cordia. From 11-70, Ray Spence in the Starion. From 12, car number 20, Alan Springett in a Commodore. Also to start from 13, Ken Grindrod. From 14, 22, John Sutter. Okay. I was looking for Neil Crompton's name, but it's all disappeared because he's still sitting next to me.
Yes.
That means you're not racing.
That
does. You've thrown the towel in,
I have. I've spat the dummy. Peter McKay's out there. He's going to have a blast because I think that Peter might figure a little better than I would have in this second heat, and the boys want to play rough, so we'll send out the big guns. And there's the Haberfield Mitsubishi Cordia.
Get the plugs in.
Yep. Roll them off.
Yeah, 2W. It's got Channel 7 Phil Ward turbo. That's your only chance. We'll never see it again. And if he bends it, you'll have to work with us for 10 years to pay off the debts. Okay, so the field is set for the Stallion Stable 2WS.
McKay's going to love having the P plate on the back.
Alrighty. Nice girls from Stallion Stable. All lined up. And, of course, Leo Gagan, who Neil spoke to earlier today. It's great to see him back, having a lash at car racing again. Leo's been away from the scene for quite a while. It'll take him a while to get the eye in, but he's at least starting from position 10. There he is. Leo Gagan, great racing name in the open wheelers, part of Australia's motor racing history. We've got some youngsters up the front that are part of today's modern history. I refer to Mark Gibson, Roland Hill and 2 Commodores, and they will have an almighty dogfight for the lead.
Another interesting car is the front-wheel drive Celica of John Burks from the Central Coast.
Yes.
Car's been going very well.
Flag is up, get set for action. And they're off and racing. Roland Hill gets the best of the start, does he? Gibson grabs another gear, goes with him, and 10, Brian Potts makes it 3 wide as they spring up towards the top of Bitchapave Hill for the first time. Out-dragged a little that time. It was Bradley Jones and the Perrier Starion, but they go over the top and drop down, and look at this 3-way dogfight between the Commodores.
Oh, these Commodores have really been nose to tail all weekend here in practice, and they've done very well, of course, in the first heat. Gibbs is in there, and Hill is in there. The Starions are really, for the first time in their history in Group E, struggling a bit. There's Fitzgerald, then Jones, then Gibbs. Peter McKay's made a great start already, going past Leo Gagan.
Coming down to the left-hander, and we have quite a scrap going on for the lead. 3 Commodores. Peter Fitzgerald will make that 2. Fitzgerald has now split them as they go down towards the lake corner. So Peter Fitzgerald, who felt the pinch in the prelim earlier this morning, now finds himself under attack. They come along, heading up to the top corner. Gibbs, Potts, Fitzgerald, then Hill. That's the order. 1 back 4 as they go across the line.
Well, Des Gibbs is having a little bit of trouble here, hanging in there with Roland Hill. Peter Fitzgerald seems to have got a better run this time, and the fella that's had bad luck all week was young Brad Jones, now driving the Perrier Starion. Big plans for that team later in the year when Stephen Gall will join in and possibly run a second car from mid-season onwards. He put the car into the fence on Thursday and knocked a side in, and they've worked very hard to get it back straight again. Potts, Fitzgerald, and then Roland Hill.
Peter Fitzgerald, of course, dominated the early days of Group E production car racing here at Amaroo Park. It was really the Fitzy show. But I'll tell you what, he's feeling the pinch today. He's back underneath Brian Potts again as they head out of Honda Corner. And back behind him, Roland Hill. Oh, 1 wheel out in the dirt. But he's managed to bring the NCR Commodore back under control. Still in 4th place.
Mark Gibbs, the winner, of course, of many of the Laser Series rounds last year. He's gone on now to Group E. He did very well in last year's Mitsubishi Winton 300. These V8 Commodores are going well. Des Gibbs, car 64 from Wagga.
They drop down into the loop area again. Des would have a big following there. Viewers taking our telecast, watching in Wagga this afternoon.
Through RVN2 and AMP4 at Albury.
Race continues. It's Commodore versus Starion.
Brett Gilden. Yes, it's the old V8 versus the Turbos routine, the Turbo Starions. This battle here looks to be a real beauty. Car number 21.
Here's Roland Hill really getting a bit of hurry up from Des Gibbs as they come through, and there's the leader, Mark Gibbs, no relation to Des. So it's really Commodore capers up front.
Brad Jones has slipped back through the field, and Peter McKay now giving him a run for his money. So Brad's had a fairly ordinary weekend, but Gibbs is doing a brilliant job. He's super tidy, he's stretching his lead all the time. It's only a matter of time before this fellow, I would suggest, ends up with a really good touring car drive.
Well, I think we've seen Mark Gibbs driving in smaller capacity machinery the last couple of seasons very aggressively. I think all he needed was a bit more power under him to really show his talent, and that's happening now.
Brian Potts has come up very well in car number 10. He's up now to third. He started fourth on the grid, and here's the rest of the field going through.
Car number 19 going through there.
It's Peter Granger, then followed by Brad Jones, who now wants to slide down on the inside, and Peter McKay next in car 7.
Making a pretty fair fist of this race, Peter McKay.
Not bad off position 16.
Kid's got talent.
More than you can say for his co-driver.
Peter Fitzgerald still trying to keep the Stallion attack upon the Commodores going at this stage. There's Peter McKay going through at number 7. They go across the line. A great series this, the Stallion stable, being joined by 2WS for the series this year. And the man, of course, who's going to be hard to toss over the distance in the second round here today, obviously, is Mark Gibbs.
Across the top of the hill, the Cordia gets to around about 175 kilometres an hour, and then it's a case of trying to stop it in time. It's got drum brakes on the back. It's a bit of a Fred Flintstone job. You'd be better to stick your foot out the side. They're a real handful to pull up, but boy, do they go in a straight line. McKay will be learning all about it at the moment as we go back to our leader, and of course Mark Gibbs in car 50, the V8 Commodore, doing a fine job at the moment.
Yes, he's speared out to a pretty handy lead as they come through the late corner this time. Very tight for room behind him in the battle for third, fourth and fifth places, but with 3 laps to go, it's all Mark Gibbs.
Peter Fitzgerald still running in second place. They've opened up a big gap on Brian Potts and Gibbs, who are really at it. And coming over the top of Bitchapave, Mark Gibbs. You can see the gap back to Peter Fitzgerald. Got to see it on the back part of the course as he goes through the corner nicely. There's Fitzgerald, as I mentioned before, regular winner here at Amaroo Park. But I'd say the Starion drivers that have a few problems looking ahead to a pretty tough season against the Commodores in Group E.
Commodores didn't shape up too well, as you said before, Mike, late in last year's series, but obviously now with that extra development they're off and running, although Fitz is doing a great job here. Closed right up now onto the back of the leader, but I guess Gibbs can afford to coast along fairly comfortably towards the latter stages of the race.
Well, depends how strongly the Commodore is that he's running. He's going to get a little untidy because Fitzgerald is a very tidy driver.
Brad Jones is back to 6th. He's regained some territory.
Yes, and back behind the leading pair, Des Gibbs now holds down third spot in car 64. He's won that battle against Brian Potts.
I was going to say the leading 2 cars must have opened up about a 150-metre gap.
Well, that was my comment. It's the first time we've seen the Group E cars stretched out this far for a long time. Gibbs's car a little the worse for wear.
Yes, it's got a little flap off there on the side. Seen better days, but I think that perhaps was as a result of trying to pick up third place. Errant Commodore got in the way.
That's the one. In fact, Brian Potts now relegated to 4th. Brad Jones hasn't shown out in this race at all, has he?
He's had one of those weeks. Hill on the inside here, Brad Jones on the outside. Brad conscious of the fact that they've already had to spend a lot of money this week to get him on the track. He doesn't want to have to spend any more, but he's got the nice line now for the late corner and moves through on the inside.
Up to 5th place.
Across the start-finishing line for the final time is the Brad Jones Hill saga continuing. They take the 1 lap to go signal, and here's our race leader, Mark Gibbs, dropping down into the loop area for the final time in this Stallion Stable 2WS Group E Production Series race. He's done a great job using all of the track, but Peter Fitzgerald just continues to gain little each lap. To Honda Corner, the left-hander, after the downhill run.
Well, Fitzgerald's done a great job here. He's now well and truly within striking distance, using every centimetre of the road. 2.5 car lengths or a little more now separates them. The Commodore's really got some straight line speed. But look at the braking ability of the Starion as he closes right back up. Fitz almost locks the brake on the way through, gets a bit sideways on the exit.
Shows you the difference between the acceleration. The last corner comes up in the Stallion Stable 2WS race. And across the line, it's going to be Mark Gibbs. He takes it for Commodore. Peter Fitzgerald will take 2nd spot. And it looks like third place coming up to Des Gibbs in car number 64, the Starion. Well, an entertaining opening round here today at Amaroo Park Raceway. Let's recap the placings on the Castrol scoreboard. The win goes to Mark Gibbs in the Commodore. Second spot, of course, to Peter Fitzgerald in the Starion. And third place to Des Gibbs in the Starion. More Amaroo action follows when we return.
Well, what a race. Great race indeed. And I think immediate congratulations go to Mark Gibbs. Fantastic effort.
Thank you very much. I'd like
Just
to
amazing. Before you get onto that, I was going to say it's amazing what a little bit more power does for you.
Yeah, they finally got a bit more horsepower and we're getting up there. It's about time someone gave the Starions a hard time, I think.
I was about to say, they're really going to get some hurry up from you Commodore guys this season, I think, in the series.
Yeah, it looks that way. This is only our first meeting and there's plenty more there, I can tell you.
Well, Peter Graham is here from 2WS, co-sponsors of the series, of course, with Stallion Stables this year, to make the presentation.
Congratulations, Mark, from Stallion Stables and all of us at 2WS, and our lovely Christine from Stallion Stables would like to award you with this great plaque and also something special in the envelope for you. Congratulations. There we go.
Thanks very much. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Stallion Stables and 2WS for their support this year. Thank you very much.
Big effort by Mark Gibbs, winning the opening round of the race here today at Amaroo Park from Peter Fitzgerald and Des Gibbs. Great race indeed. Well, we've got more in store for you. We're going now to Mike Raymond and some information on the Touring Car Championship.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. Well, 12 months ago, Peter Brock sat on pole position for the second round of the Australian Touring Car Championship at Sandown. It was the Commodore's first appearance in Group A. And today, for the opening round of the 86 Championship, George Fury has done it with the new Nissan Skyline. Pole position first up. It's almost like a dream come true, George.
Well, it's true, Mike. It's great to come back after a year of absence from racing and get into it like this. And pole position was something that we just hoped for, but it's great.
How much work did you put in here at the track before practice yesterday?
Well, that's the amazing part, that the car hasn't really been tested all that long. We've only been out on one serious test session before we came to the track on Thursday here, and the car is just so good that you know, we were able to do that time.
Well, you've got Robbie Francevic on the front row of the grid with you, so turbo power certainly struck here for the opening round.
Yeah, I think the difference is who's wearing the better hat, and I think I am.
George, you look magnificent. Did you have to trade the beach one in on that?
Yes, yes. New hat, new car, new team.
Well, you've got pole. How difficult will it be to win the race here over 52 laps?
It will be difficult because the car hasn't been run for that long in the one hit, and but the car is reasonably light, and it should be reasonably light on its tyres. It's very fast in a straight line, so we've got all hopes of doing a good job of it tomorrow.
And who do you see as the toughest man to beat in the field?
Well, I think the Volvo will be, and of course Jimmy Richards is there. Dick Johnson's there, Brocky's there. I mean, everybody's there. It's going to be a very close year this year, I believe.
Well, congratulations again. I think you and Howard Marsden and obviously Freddie Gibson will be all smiles.
All pluses for Freddie Gibson, who's done a fantastic job in the time available to make such a good car out of it.
George Fury, who sits on pole for today's Australian Touring Car Championship opener here at Amaroo Park. How it all pans out, we'll find out after this break. And welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway, the scene for the Better Breaks 100, the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship here this afternoon. Let's take a look at the grid, how they'll line up for the opening round of the title. George Fury sitting there on pole position. Robbie Francevic will start from 2. Back in the second row, Dick Johnson of Queensland in the Mustang from 3, and Jim Richards in the BMW from 4. The next row back is Peter Brock from 5 in car 5, and from position 6, car number 2, Graham Bailey. The unsponsored car from 7 is car number 75, Colin Bond, a great qualifying effort from 8. 25, Tony Longhurst of Queensland in the BMW. The next row back sees car number 3, John Harvey of the Mobile Dealer Team, starting out of 9, and from position 10, car 33, Mike Bergman in the Commodore. From 11 is car number 7, Charlie O'Brien of Queensland in the BMW, and from position number 12 is car number 12, Gary Wilmington in the Jaguar XJS. A full field of starters. Behind Gary Wilmington, Brian Callahan, Graham Crosby of New Zealand in the Commodore, Kevin Bartlett in the Starion, Terry Finnegan, Gary Rogers, Alf Grant, Ken Matthews, Gerald Kay, Graham Hooley, Ken Davidson, Bob Holden, Laurie Hazelton and Peter Williamson. They're ready, they're set.
the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship from Sydney's Amaroo Park. The better brakes, 100 turbo power, the front row. About 6 seconds away from the start. Racing in the Australian Touring Car Championship, and New Zealand's Robbie Francevic and Albury's George Fury go at it, hammer and tongs. Francevic will win the drag to the top of the hill. Johnson away smartly, and then Jim Richards being shouldered off as Peter Brock makes a run up the inside, but Francevic takes the lead. Fury in second. Third place held down by Dick Johnson. Then the Chicken Man going through. Richards, a beautiful inside pass, and the two Mobile Commodores. Longhurst made a blinder as well as they head down the back part of the course where George Fury takes over the lead in the Nissan Skyline.
Great start to this opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship Series, and look at Fury, will you? Turbo power off the front row of the grid. He and Robbie Francevic side by side up the top of the hill, and Fury winning out in the initial battle. Dick Johnson just in behind them as they go down to the lake corner for the first time. Then the plain white car of Graham Bailey.
Well, that was a tremendous start from Bailey in a brand new car. He took delivery of the vehicle last Wednesday, a car built by Roadways in Melbourne, the Les Small organisation, and in fourth position at the end of the first lap as George Fury leads from Francevic and Dick Johnson.
They've completed one of 52 circuits of Sydney's Amaroo Park. Peter Jackson, Nissan Skyline, and George Fury leads from Francevic, Johnson. And the next one to go through is the strong qualifier, Graham Bailey in the Commodore. Unsponsored, but doing one heck of a job as he drops up into fourth place as they race down the back part of the course. Jim Richards behind him, then Peter Brock, John Harvey, and then, of course, Tony Longhurst.
Harvey had trouble with a rotor button this morning in the Commodore. They've sorted that problem out, although we did see him stop on the warm-up even prior to this race. We hope everything's okay with car number 3.
There's Jim Richards, the man who won the Australian title, and here he comes down the inside. Just can't maneuver. Yes, he does. Straight down under brakes on the inside of Graham Bailey. You want to go racing? Want the championship? I'm after it. And here's John Harvey in the second of the dealer team Commodores coming up as well behind Jim Richards. Gentleman Jim feeling the pinch just a little bit in the opener.
And
Peter Brock through as well as they race up on the outside. Let's see whether they can pass last year's champ. One passes. That's Harvey. Here's Brock. Up on the outside of Jim Richards and takes the inside run. Will he do it over the top? No, he can't.
The Commodores with almost 400 brake horsepower, the BMW 300, the Commodore a fraction heavier, but by gee, the 86 Evolution is really working for the dealer team.
Keep your eyes on Tony Longhurst. We'll certainly be doing that.
Will the tyres last on the Commodores over the 52-lap journey? That's the big question.
There's John Harvey doing nicely there in car number 3. Oh, one around sideways or going off the circle. Pick that up for you later. Here's Harvey.
It was Bailey.
Jim Richards right behind him, and Brock warming to the task of also passing Richards as they head down to the bottom corner. The scrap continues for the lead. Here is Jim Richards moving to the outside. Harvey is there as well. There's Kevin Bartlett by the look of things with the Starion that is not firing. Coming across the line, and Tony Longhurst coming up to give his JPS teammate a little support as Peter Brock looks for a way past Jim Richards, and Longhurst is back behind him. Robbie Francevic goes back into the lead, this time over the top of Nissan Skyline. George Fury still in second spot, and Queensland's own Dick Johnson still in third.
I think George got in trouble coming up onto the main straight. Francevic darted by, and Dick Johnson almost got the Nissan as well. Well, Bailey's gone. He's spun off one lap earlier in this position here. So it's car number 10, Robbie Francevic, in the Volvo 242 Turbo, with around about 80 or 90 metres over George Fury. Dick Johnson plunging through, looking for a gap for second place. He's doing a great job in the Mustang.
Here they come through the bend and back onto the start-finishing straight. Kiwiland's Robbie Francevic doing one super job as he goes across the line. And we join race cam now as we head up towards Mitchell Payfield with Dick Johnson, and he is chasing George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. Down into the right-hander. Incidents galore in this Touring Car Championship. We've got one of them coming up for you shortly. And let's take a look at it. Dick Johnson going through with the pack, and here is Graham Bailey getting out of shape, going across the circuit on the exit to Mazda corner. There's only a bank out there to hit, but Bailey gets the brakes on. The car is ploughing it through and stops short of the bank. Graham Bailey exits the Australian Touring Car Championship round 1. Dick Johnson still in third behind Robbie Francevic and George Fury.
The Mustang really working hard, trying to get some grip a fair bit of horsepower from this beast, and Dick Johnson having all sorts of strife this weekend, trying to get it to the ground on the short circuit.
Gee, Francevic is galloping away up front now in the Volvo. Really opening up quite a commanding lead over George Fury in the Nissan Skyline, then Johnson. And quite a gap then back to John Harvey in the first of the dealer team Commodores, followed by Jim Richards, then Peter Brock.
By comparison to Francevic's performance here last year at this round, Francevic has come down some 2 seconds a lap in lap time, so they've done some great development work with the car.
I was just about to say that Francevic didn't even make the touring car starting lineup last year. Actually, a wheel fell off the car around about this part of the circuit, and he was a casualty even before the green flag. There he is, though, the man who sat on pole position for the Wellington 500 street race, failed to finish it, and also the follow-up event in New Zealand. But he's back campaigning the touring car title in the Mark Petch Turbo Volvo, and looking very strong at this stage as he leads George Fury and Dick Johnson.
The dealer team Commodores are now running 4th and 5th, Harvey and Brock. Brock having got by Jim Richards, and Richards, in fact, is under pressure now from teammate Tony Longhurst in the BMW 325.
Well, it was Jim Richards' decision not to run the 325. He wanted to run the 635. And I think, well, we'll wait and see the way the race pans out. It might have been the wrong decision. Terry Finnegan running strongly in the Huon Valley Commodore V8. But here's Johnson closing a little this time on George Fury as they come down through Mazda. And the downhill run to the left-hander at Mazda corner. Francevic running away. Second of the turbo cars, driven by George Fury, the Peter Jackson entry. And here's the scrap, the two mobile Commodores of John Harvey and Peter Brock. And two BMWs, Richards in 62, and of course in the number 25 car, Tony Longhurst. We've got two teams here. And they're having a great scrap. The mobile team that are going overseas to campaign the European Touring Car Championship, the JPS BMW team that ran so strongly in last year's Australian title.
Longhurst is running the 325 Series BMW, an extension of last year's 323. It's now 200cc bigger in the engine, slightly different brakes, a little bit more horsepower, but it'll be very good round this circuit towards the end of the race. What a battle this is between the JPS team and the mobile team, with Brock leading the bunch, then Harvey, then Richards, then Longhurst.
Quite a decision for Tony Longhurst to make, whether to go on with this or sit in behind the team leader.
I know what I'd do if I had the chance.
Go for it. I think Tony's going to do that shortly. Francevic extends his lead by 200 metres to George Fury. 5 back to Johnson, 100 back to Brock, and right behind Brock, Harvey, Jim Richards and Tony Longhurst.
Francevic's lead now 3 seconds plus and pulling away from George Fury.
Wonderlic corner, Peter Brock, 0-5. Not Brock's favourite circuit, Amaroo Park. Pretty hard on the V8 cars, always has been.
Their biggest problem is literally just getting the car to track straight here. We can see Peter Brock in strife, under brakes, through the turns, the car slipping and sliding. It's 1,325 kilograms, and it's carrying 100 kilograms of lead ballast just to bring it up to that way. So it's one of the heavier cars in the field. And they're still running the same rim and tyre size that they ran last year, so more horsepower. They have to pull it up in a hurry. It's hard on brakes, it's hard on tyres.
Certainly well suited to some of the other longer and faster circuits.
As we saw in New Zealand.
Down towards the lake again. John Harvey, number 3, running the second of our Channel 7 race cabs. There we take the pictures. He's following Peter Brock, and he's got the two JPS BMWs neatly tucked in behind him. And giving Brock a bit of a break on the field as he goes out chasing Dick Johnson. Heading up Bitchapave Hill, you can see Brock, and just ahead of Brock, of course, is Dick Johnson. And George Fury in the Nissan Skyline, the Peter Jackson entry.
They're all a long way from Robbie Francevic, though, at the moment, even at this early stage of the race. There he is in the turbocharged Volvo, and a big space, clear space behind him as he goes over the back part of the circuit down to Honda Corner. Really got this car running smoothly, super smooth.
There's lots of rumours buzzing about the pits at the moment as to the future of the Volvo team in Australia. We believe that there will be an announcement shortly, but certainly the Volvo is now starting to get its act together for the 86 season. And now Dick Johnson through into second place in car number 17, and George Fury drops back to third. We'll see them here as they come through Wonderlic and onto the main straight, and Queensland's top banana, Dick Johnson, in second spot.
And Peter Brock's getting pretty close now too.
So Dick Johnson gains 1. He moves to 2nd. George Fury goes back to 3rd after sitting on the pole. And here comes Peter Brock in 0.5. Brock will be running today's race, and of course next weekend heads off to Symonds Plains in Tasmania for the 2nd round of the title, and after that it's off to Monza for the opening round of the European Championship with Alan Moffat.
Well, you know, whatever the Commodores do here at Amaroo, they're going to go yards better at places like Symonds Plains.
George Fury, what a debut for the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Brand spanking new car to bring it out and put it on pole position. He's still doing a great job running in 3rd. But Peter Brock's getting closer to him. Johnson's already made the swish. He's gone to 2nd. And now Brock and Harvey and the 2 BMWs close up on George Fury.
They set the Nissan up with a very low ride height and very hard springing, and as a consequence of that it seems to be oversteering a fair bit and giving rear tyres a hard time. And we were looking at the car in the pits this morning, and even the team were wondering about how it would last when it was sliding around as much. Now Brock starts to really challenge the Nissan across the top. I think he even got his hand out the window there.
Well, that wouldn't be Brock if he if he couldn't get it out and wave someone. But he was under a lot of pressure a few laps back, Peter Brock. He's managed to close it up now, looking for 3rd place. Closes on George Fury. Tail out again. Looks like the Ignis Alpha entry of Colin Bond has some problems. They're changing tyres, obviously. Looking under there for some suspension problem or engine problem. Rico Zanarini there, team manager for Alfa Romeo.
Brock was running in 8th place when he did call into the pits. But,
trouble for Harvey in car number 3. He's slowed, almost stopped.
He's been dogged by problems even since Thursday here in practice.
I don't know whether he's got enough momentum to be able to get back to the pits. He's certainly trying to.
Is that something dragging under the car or just my imagination?
Well, it's very low to the ground, whatever it is.
Graham Crosby goes through. So Harvey still tries to get into the pit area, and Peter Brock takes George Fury in the Nissan Skyline to pick up 3rd place. Dick Johnson's ahead of him on the racetrack, and 150 metres ahead of Johnson is the race leader, Robbie Francevic, in the Mark Petch Turbo Volvo.
12 down and 40 remaining.
Skyline under pressure now from both the BMWs, Jim Richards and Tony Longhurst, so George has really got his hands full out there today.
Yes. Coming up to the Nissan Skyline is, of course, the JPS duo, Tony Longhurst. He's done a great job to be positioned where he is, and that car will only get stronger as the race progresses. It's not carrying the weight. It seems to have enough grunt to really get around Amaroo Park quite quickly. George goes over the line with the 2 black and gold cars following him up Bitchapave Hill again.
Over the top they go. Fury leading that trio. Defending champion Jim Richards right behind him, but up front it's Robbie Francevic in the Volvo, leading Dick Johnson's Mustang, and 0.5 Peter Brock in 3rd place after 13 out of 52 laps in the Better Brakes 100.
Welcome back to Amaroo Park, and the Australian Touring Car Championship continues, and Queensland's favourite son, Dick Johnson, is in 2nd place, and that must feel comfortable at this stage, Dick.
Yeah, mate, I'm a bit busy, I tell you.
It's the sort of track that keeps you busy.
You're not wrong. Poor old tyres are really coming to work out. She's pretty loose in the rear end. But God, I tell you what, that Volvo, mate, it's probably like President Marcos's pockets when he left the Philippines.
No doubt about you. You haven't lost your sense of humour. You're running in 2nd at the moment. How much do you expect your tyres to go off as you get towards half distance?
No more than what they already have, I hope.
I see.
Otherwise, I'll be getting a lot busier than what I am now, I tell you.
Yes, it's really a problem, and the traffic's a problem around here when you come up on slower cars.
Well, I think it's where the problem comes in is in traffic like this. And now Brock's caught up, you see? That's what I mean about bloody guys that get in the goddamn road and spoil a good race.
Well, we're not going to spoil a good race. I'll let you get back to it. Thanks for the call.
Bye, pal.
Oh. Dick Johnson. And the man who is really howling in the traffic is, of course, Tony Longhurst, car number 25. the car that was offered to Jim Richards to drive. You can see that Longhurst is running away from Jim Richards at this stage. That wouldn't please Richards. It would certainly please at least Frank Gardner, because he's got a light car, enough power, and he's going to make it very difficult for not only Peter Brock, but also for Dick Johnson over the distance.
It's amazing. This car just would not go in practice and in qualifying on Saturday. And Richards opted to go back to the 635, in which he won the touring car title last year. And lo and behold, Longhurst has slipped into the 25 car, and it's going like smoke.
They were expecting more brake horsepower in this car than they really got, and I think that was the reason that Richards went back. But the thing that was really going to put this car towards the head of the field at the end of the 52 laps was the way it was going to handle its tyre wear.
Well, we're not at the end of the 52 yet, and he's already up there.
Well, he's maintaining his pace while the others are going off all the time. So Longhurst now getting the 05 Commodore lined up in the gun sights. And as we heard Dick Johnson say a few moments ago, Peter Brock breathing right up his exhaust pipe as well.
Well, there's the two cars that Tony Longhurst is closing on. Dick Johnson, of course, and Peter Brock. At this stage, Robbie Francevic in car number 10 still continues to lead, and quite comfortably, the opening round of the touring car title.
About 300 metres ahead.
Dick Johnson is in second place. Peter Brock followed by Tony Longhurst. Jim Richards is the next place driver. And just back behind him, of course, we take in our race leader, Robbie Francevic, and doing it quite nicely. Out in front, not really the track that suits the Volvo, but doing it comfortably. Robbie Francevic, let's take a look at what makes the man and his success. He won, of course, the Amaroo Park and Symonds Plains round of the 85 Australian Touring Car Championship. And he won the 85 Distance Sport 500 in Wellington. 44 years of age, from Auckland, and driving the Volvo Turbo, turned out by the Mark Petch crew. Robbie Francevic in the Turbo Volvo and doing strongly here today.
20 laps completed out of 52.
There's the man.
Well, gee, at this rate, 32 laps remaining the way he's going, they're going to be very hard put to reel this leader in.
Well, the Petch team and Chief Mechanic Wayne Eckersley appeared as though they've sorted out their reliability problems now with the Volvo, and the car is flying. He's not putting a foot wrong, and he's still opening up that gap. And we'll check that gap. Next time they come around on the Nissan in the pits, Fred Gibson, team manager, leaning through the right-hand door, talking with Fury. And the dream run appears to have come to a close with a wheel off there. I wonder whether or not they did end up chewing out a set of tyres like we suspected. And let's have a look at how Peter Brock's going in the field, because there's a real battle on here between himself and Dick Johnson. Tony Longhurst right behind him, and this is where all attention will be focused for the next few laps, because it's that little black car, just 960 kilograms, that's right into the boot of the Holden Commodore.
Do you remember it was Longhurst that gave Brock some hurry up here at the final meeting last year?
Dick Johnson tried to do his best in second spot. The Volvo has already gone up the hill, so it's 300 metres ahead, and still doing it very easily. Johnson running in second place in the fresh air this time, pulls away a little bit from Peter Brock, and Brock has Tony Longhurst closing on him on the tight part of the course. But of course the V8 power comes into play as they go up the top of Bitchapay Hill, and that's where they pull away from Longhurst. He grabs them back very, very quickly though as they drop into the loop area.
Longhurst will contest the entire Australian Touring Car Championship, and they'll swing in between the 325 and the 635 car. And of course this little car will be perfect at circuits like Calder and Winton as well.
While all this action's going on, the Nissan that we saw in the pits a few moments ago is going to pull in there again. It went back out just for the one lap, but I think it might have run its race for the day. Bad luck after doing such a great job to qualify in pole position, but couldn't stand the heat under race conditions.
Well, Johnson managing to maintain that gap between himself and Brock at the moment, with Brock under siege.
It's actually working in Johnson's favour, I think. Brock having to pay quite a bit of attention to the attack on his rear bumper by Longhurst.
This is the battle for second, third and fourth, and Longhurst knows that the longer he stays there, the better off the situation becomes for him.
It's quite amazing, you know, how much Longhurst has dropped off Jim Richards in the 635 car.
Very surprising. But let's bear in mind that the 635 BMW hasn't had any of the evolutionary changes that the other cars have had. The Mustang's quicker now, the Commodore is quicker, the little 325 has come along, perfectly suited to this circuit. And there's even more goodies coming for the Volvo later in the year.
Well, Jim is #1 and he has the choice of cars. I think we'll be seeing him stick with the 325 next meeting.
Well, the man won 11 out of 11 races here at Amaroo Park last year. The run had to end sometime. Round 1 of the Touring Car Championship looks like being the end of that run.
Tony Longhurst, the man on the move at the moment, still has to pass Peter Brock and Dick Johnson. Of course, he can close on them in the tight part of the racetrack. There are a few of those, but for straight line power, of course, Brock and Johnson are able to run away from him coming up the hill. And of course, on the short straights. Little wander that time from Longhurst, but Johnson still holding down second. Heading down to the bottom corner. And the race leader still is Robbie Francevic. Second place is being held down by Queensland's Dick Johnson. And third, of course, by Melbourne's Peter Brock. Welcome back to the Australian Touring Car Championship. And just look at this scrap between Tony Longhurst, Peter Brock and Dick Johnson. They've been swapping for the last 2 laps of this race. Here's Johnson fighting back. He, of course, was taken by Brock. Brock's moved to third. Johnson is fourth. Priest Fender, too, by the look of it. And Tony Longhurst has really been harrying these 2 V8s. This is where the interest is in the race. Robbie Francevic will go to him later, but, of course, he's leading it and increasing his lead all the time. Johnson back to second. To the top of the hill.
Longhurst getting out of shape. I think that he's really starting to push the issue, perhaps just a fraction too early. 27 laps down out of 52, and we all know that the tyres of the Commodore and the Mustang probably won't hold up. So Tony really forcing the pace. He just doesn't want to force it too much.
Just recapping again, was incorrect last time. The race leader, Robbie Francevic, second Peter Brock, third Dick Johnson, fourth is Tony Longhurst. And let's have a look at how Longhurst put the pressure on Dick Johnson and Peter Brock. Caught out wide, Johnson finds Brock, snapping down the inside of him. That takes away second on the road, but look at Longhurst getting the car absolutely sideways. And of course he skated past Dick Johnson, but Johnson has come back to take him again. Close racing in the opening round of the Touring Car title.
Real double shuffle there, and it ended up putting Longhurst back into fourth position. Still pressuring Dick Johnson, though, and giving Peter Brock a bit of a breathing space now as he moves away from that pair, but in a almost futile pursuit, I think, of Robbie Francevic, unless something goes wrong with the Volvo, and it doesn't look like it at this stage.
Francevic's gap over Brock is now something like 15 seconds, so he keeps pulling out a second a lap here and there. And now Peter Brock has managed to open up a gap over Dick Johnson.
Interesting scrap this, because you'll notice Peter Brock coming out of the turn. Dick Johnson is there, Longhurst is there, and Jim Richards starting to come back on the boil again in the BMW 635.
Is he going to prove us all bad judges and come home in this car yet?
Could be. He's done it before.
Richards knows this circuit well. He's won a lot of races here.
He's in 5th place, Jim Richards, on the track at the present time, and 6th place is held by New Zealand's Graham Crosby, driving a Commodore, but well back at this stage.
Tony, he's going to be so lucky to save that.
There he goes, bang on the inside of Johnson. Dick would love that. He climbs up on the curve all over it as well. Jim sitting back behind, just thinking, well, it won't be too long before I should be able to do the same. Johnson, meantime, is feeling the pinch. As he said to us earlier, tyres had already gone off. So he's battling tyre wear the biggest possible way. And Longhurst now, with a little bit of breathing space, will go after Peter Brock. And while that's happening, Jim Richards is closing in for the kill on Dick Johnson.
After 30 laps, Robbie Francevic leading the race from 0.5, Peter Brock. Then 25, Tony Longhurst, and 17, Dick Johnson. Jim Richards is next on the racetrack, followed, as I said, by Graham Crosby. But Robbie Francevic, as we said, doing it so well up front.
Dick Johnson comes down into the loop area, and from race cam, of course, there's the scrap in front. Tony Longhurst trying to come up on a slower car, takes him on the inside. Peter Brock just ahead of the two of those. Longhurst still doing a bit of wobbling in the car.
Yeah, he's getting sideways a lot.
Here's Terry Finnegan in the Huon Valley entry. He's been smoking the last couple of laps, but Johnson manages to put a lap on him and comes out still chasing, of course.
Look for the race cam shot as the car comes around here. You get an idea of the phenomenal crowd that's jammed Amaroo Park today for this Better Breaks 100.
Is our race leader, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand, and the Mark Petch Volvo Turbo, number 10. Car that was hot and cold last season. I'll tell you what, might be running cool, but it's a very hot combination of Francevic and the Volvo for season 86.
Francevic had a couple of wins last year, a second, a fourth, a sixth, a seventh, a ninth. 2 did not finish results, 1 pole position, and he didn't start one of the rounds.
Coming up, of course, on Mike Bergman in number 33. Let's go back and have a look at the BMW action. It's been intense here as Longhurst keeps the pressure going on Peter Brock. Brian Callahan just in front there, but he's about to have a lap put on him by Dick Johnson. That all happens as we speak. And now Longhurst and Peter Brock. Frank Gardner looks worried. Not really. He looks that way if he's happy.
Richards has closed right up on this group as well and is right on Dick Johnson's tailpipe, so it's a 4-way dice now.
Yes, it's on for second place in earnest. Gentleman Jim, 62. The second of the JPS cars, carrying also sponsorship logos for Bob Jane T-Marts, who of course are strongly supporting Gary Rogers, and another Frank Gardner prepared BMW for the ATCC for 1986.
He's in fact out on the racetrack in 7th place at the moment, Gary Rogers, in the second of the 325 BMWs.
Richards owns a T-Mart in Melbourne, in the suburb of Coburg.
And of course Longhurst has gone through on the run into the loop area. Here's Richard starting to put some muscle up on Dick Johnson. Sorry, Dick, he says. The man has to do what a man has to do. And takes Brock on the same straight. With
ease.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened to Brock here.
And you heard how hard it was for Johnson to get power to the ground as he came out of there in third. And now Johnson makes a move on Peter Brock side by side. And out comes the hand. Peter Brock acknowledging something. Is it a flag or has he got a problem with the Commodore?
He's gone to the pits.
Richards goes through, then Johnson. Brock has disappeared to pit lane.
So the two mobile Commodores to the pits. Really, I guess in Peter Brock's situation, the tyres have gone off. And as you can see, they're going for a change of rubber. Maybe 52 laps around Amaroo Park. Perhaps like a 500k race at any other racetrack.
Well, it looks like they've gone back onto Pirelli D3s. I think they started the race on the D3 compound, which is the harder of the Pirelli radial tyre compounds. Tony Di Gennaro there, the team manager, just to the left of screen. We can barely see him. The car up on its central jacking system and leaves the pits again, but he would have lost probably a good lap in that exercise.
He certainly lost a lap to the race leader. There he is, Robbie Francevic, because Francevic just went straight past as Brock was coming out of the pits. Well, there he is, the man leading the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship in car number 10. It's Robbie Francevic of New Zealand. Second spot being held down by Tony Longhurst in the BMW 325, and third place by his teammate Jimmy Richards.
Back at Amaroo Park as the Better Breaks 100 unwinds. First round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. This man is holding down 6th place on the racetrack. It's Graham Crosby from New Zealand in a Holden Commodore. Just up ahead of him on the track in the third of the JPS BMW cars is Gary Rogers.
This is the car that was campaigned last year at the James Hardie 1000 and other Australian events by Denny Holm and Ray Smith. It was formerly the Auckland Coin and Bullion car, now in the hands of Graham Crosby, who finished second in the World Motorcycle Championships back in '82 for Team Yamaha.
Charlie O'Brien just in behind this pair too. You'll probably see him, there he is, just slipping into to view through the corners in the yellow number 7 car. That's him, the bumper-to-bumper BMW.
Crosby remembered for his brilliant rides here at Amaroo Park probably 10 or more years ago now on the Kawasaki. Now adapting extremely well in the '86 Evolution Holden Commodore. This is Gary Rogers, the second of the 325 BMWs in this field. Rogers is in fact now the owner of the car that Jim Richards is driving, but as we've spoken about already, they decided to do the old switcheroo on Saturday because Jim felt happier in the bigger car, so Gary inherited the smaller one once again. And he will contest the entire Australian Touring Car Championship under the colours of Bob Jane T-Marts. His car will be repainted orange when Richards' new car is ready.
It's a big break and a deserving break, I think, for an aggressive driver like Gary Rogers.
He's a good campaigner, very quick. stage of the game, up in 5th position.
13 laps remaining, in fact, with Rogers in 5th from the top. It's Robbie Francevic still at the head of affairs by a big space, ahead of Tony Longhurst in the first of the JPS cars. Then teammate Jim Richards, followed by Dick Johnson's Mustang in 4th place. Then car number 23, the man we're talking about, Gary Rogers, and the car behind him, of course, Graham Crosby from New Zealand, and Charlie O'Brien closing up quite quickly now in the yellow BMW.
Yes, the O'Brien car is the ex-Archibald, Trevor Crowe, Neville Crichton and Tony Longhurst car. So Charlie doing very well in that, and he now owns 2 of those 635 BMWs.
Dick Johnson campaigns in car number 17, still doing quite nicely. He's been feeling the pinch just a little today, as most of the V8 drivers have been, of course, with tyre wear at Amaroo Park. Dick carrying race cam for us.
Mate.
You're having a good day, mate.
Holy cow, mate, you don't believe what this is like. I tell you what, even Peter Perfect didn't have time to do his arm exercise out the window.
I tell you what would you say if I said to you they were thinking about doing a 24-hour race at Amaroo Park?
Mate, you have got to be kidding. What for?
Yes, it's a bit hard on the V8s. You guys really do carry a handicap here against the smaller...
It makes it pretty hard because, like, you're never straight round here. And when your tyres are off, you're not even straight going up the straight.
Tell me, in a perfectly set up V8, how long does it take for the tyres to go off when you're racing here?
Oh, probably 10 laps, and you really start to feel them wander away. See, bear in mind that this car is the same weight as Brock's and about 200 odd kilos heavier than Jim's BMW, and probably about 450 or 500 kilos heavier than that little 325.
Would you say this is the...
you know, all we need is 5 guys your size in the car with them, and they'd be about right, wouldn't it?
Watch it, Smarty. I was going to ask you, is this the toughest racetrack in Australia for the cars and for tyres, V8s?
In Australia it is, but boy, in temperatures like this, that Wellington track in New Zealand was unbelievable.
Well, Dick, I think we better leave you to it because there's still quite a few laps to go before the finish, and you've got your work cut out for you. We can see that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
OK, pal. Catch you later.
OK.
Dick Johnson, who we've been following with race cam.
The gap between Francevic and Johnson is now 19.5 seconds, and Robbie Francevic has been doing extremely well in this race, running his own race well ahead of the field. And there he is, coming through the sweeper at the back part of the course, just as Dick Johnson negotiates the front straight, so it's becoming a third of a lap or more lead now.
Well, technically, for the times that Francevic has been doing, 42 of 52 completed, 10 remain, obviously. At Francevic, with tyres, and he had tyre problems last year, but he's been able to do this ever so casually today. Yes. There's one, Kevin Bartlett, I think, Starion going left, right. And in the meantime, of course, Robbie goes through in car number 10.
Brock has gone round past Francevic and unlapped himself, and I think he's up to 8th position at the moment, so that pit stop didn't cost him quite as much time as I thought.
Well, it might be fresh for the final sprint, but at least the tyres, judging by what Dick has said, will probably be off in 8 laps again anyway.
This car's done some work now, hasn't it? It won the Wellington 500 a couple of years ago, 85, back there when Michel Delcourt came out from Belgium and partnered Mark Petch and Robbie Francevic. It did last year's Touring Car Championship, the AMSCAR Series, the Endurance Series, the New Zealand Series early this year, and starts off another bout in 86.
The interesting thing is, of course, that Francevic last year won his first round of the touring car title at Symmons Plains, where, of course, our 7 cameras will be visiting next weekend for round 2 of the 86 series. But, of course, the Brock Commodore showing out so strongly, and George Fury in the Nissan. It's more of a power track, not as many turns and twists.
The Commodores will be really good at Symmons.
I think there'll be a crackerjack race at Symmons Plains next weekend.
9 laps remaining for Robbie Francevic. In the Volvo, about 340-odd brake horsepower at his disposal, and using it nicely.
I think the champagne corks will be popping in the Francevic tent tonight with Mark Petch.
Provided the turbo doesn't pop.
No, I don't think it will. It's been running strongly. They deserve a good win here. And I tell you, this is the toughest little outfit in Australia to win on.
Weather conditions, in fact, played into their hands today because they were forecasting clear skies and very warm temperatures. It's still moderately warm, but overcast, and I think they'll be happy about that.
Crosby in trouble there in car 20. So it's not been a good day for the General.
Well, Graham Crosby, who gave this a good shot, heading back slowly to the pit area. He'll be campaigning in the Australian Touring Car Championship. Now, this is the Better Brakes 100, and the brakes are certainly going the way of Robbie Francevic. Car number 10, increasing that lead all the time.
Jim Richards has managed to elevate himself above Tony Longhurst as well, which is a tremendous effort from him in the 6.35. And you can see that Francevic now really in cruise mode. The car not leaping around at all, not sliding. The driver really doing a good job. And major support this season from Castrol.
He had a lot of support from Swedish companies in New Zealand for the 2 races over there. So Robbie Francevic, car number 10, just doing it nicely, very comfortably ahead. But I'll tell you what, I think his times have gone off the boil the last couple of laps.
He's just coasting now. His lead is in excess of 20 kilometres. There's Terry Finnegan in the middle of the Amaroo Park complex with steam and water and oil and all sorts of things coming out of the Huon Valley Springs entry.
I think it sprung a leg.
Oh.
Okay, heading up to the top of the hill, Kiwi lands. Robbie Francevic continues to lead the Better Brakes 100. Second place being held down by gentleman Jim Richards, and third place to Queensland's Tony Longhurst.
Laps remaining in the Better Brakes 100, first round of the Touring Car Championship at Amaroo. Will that be enough time for Jim Richards in 62 to bridge a very big gap on the race leader, Robbie Francevic? Not unless something goes wrong with Francevic, I feel. Although, I tell you what, the lead is not as big as it was.
No. I noticed that before we went to our last break, that Jim was closing.
It's about 120 metres, as opposed to, I reckon it must have been 250 in the mid-stages of the race.
Wilco, you must have your glasses off. It's the best 120 metres I've ever seen. It's 6.7 seconds.
Well, anything can happen in motor racing, and probably will, kid. They head to the top of Bitchapave, and Jim Richards, the man who dominated the Australian Championship for 85, with 7 out of 10 wins, in second spot at the moment today. And it's gliding a little bit coming out of the corner. Robbie Francevic of New Zealand continues to lead. Peter Brock's trying to catch back a fair bit of ground as well as they head down towards the lake area.
Well, I just wonder whether or not Francevic has got a problem with the Volvo, or whether he realises that he only has to coast home. Richards is certainly making a charge. We'll put the watch on them again. Francevic goes by our commentary point. At last count, it was 6.7 seconds. The gap is now 4.5.
Wilco was right.
Now it's 120 metres.
Dropping into the loop area, Robbie Francevic, as he got tyre trouble. He is going to have to guide this home, and gentleman Jim is closing all the time in the BMW 635. Here's Francevic. It's part of the circuit. The turbo getting away nicely, heading down to the left-hander at Honda. Laps on his side, but you'll shortly see the familiar figure, the familiar sight of that black BMW of Jim Richards, 635. And Frank Gardner will be telling Jim you're closing at a couple of seconds a lap. But whether or not Robbie can tweak it, heading up the hill, here he comes, and there's the gap. 2 laps remain in the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Francevic, the turbo, turned up, going for broke.
And the gap is now 3.5 seconds. He's pulled another second in that lap. And can Richards make it 12 out of 12 at Amaroo?
And problems here for Gary Rogers in the 23 BMW. Some smoke pouring out of the car as Peter Brock will come around the outside of him. Oh, yes, that doesn't look good at all for Gary Rogers. Brock, being time, we should point out, has been able to come back from 8th past Charlie O'Brien, and presently is up to 6th. Okay, Gary Rogers exits with a lap and a half remaining. And here is Robbie Francevic. He will take the last lap board next time around. Richards closing all the time behind him.
The gap now 2.2 seconds.
2.2, so he's been pulling him in at probably 1.8 a lap. The last lap board is about ready to come out. 1 lap remains in the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Gentlemen, Jim Richards, the 85 champion, is on the boil. The man in front of him is Aucklander Robbie Francevic in the Mark Petch Turbo Volvo.
Well, there have been 2 great drives in this race, and they're running first and second.
Yes, very gingerly through the corners. I would think maybe as a tyre problem.
Yeah, I'd say tyres are shot on the car.
Jag Parts number 24, K entry, parked up out of everyone's way. Francevic treating this almost like a ballerina on ice as he comes down. Look at Richards closing all the time. There's some lap cars coming into play. The last half lap of this race, and Francevic comes out of the bend, and Richards is on the boil going after him as they come down now to the final. A right-hander. A slow car coming up. Frank Gardner steps up, waits to see who's going to win the championship opener. Robbie Francevic of Auckland comes into the final corner in the Mark Petch Volvo. Richards closes, but going across the straight to take the checker. It goes to Volvo Power. Second place across the line is going to go to Jim Richards, and a great finish to Richards. And third across the line is going to be Tony Longhurst in the second of the JPS BMWs. A great drive from Robbie Francevic in car number 10. Let's have a look at the placings. Francevic, the winner in the Volvo 242. Second place to Jim Richards in the JPS BMW. And third place going to Tony Longhurst in the BMW 325. Well, there's the man. He's done it. He joined the touring car circus last year at Sandown in Victoria. They had problems there, but a week later, of course, he struck pay dirt at Simmons Plains in Tasmania, winning his taking his first of 2 victories for the Australian Championship. And boy, hasn't he started today's title on a fine note, Neil Crompton.
He has indeed, and he will go now to Tasmania next weekend with confidence. And what a performance from Jim Richards. I thought that he was almost a write-off there in the first 10 laps, Mike. He was going backwards at a great rate of knots and then recovered in the 635, the bigger of the 2 BMWs that he had the option of driving, and got to within 1.8 seconds at the end.
Make no mistake, don't write off the Commodores just yet. This is a very strange racetrack, Amaroo Park. Things happen here with the big cars that you couldn't believe anywhere else. And we'll see how the Brock Mobile Commodores and, of course, Dick Johnson fare when they go to Simmons Plains in Tasmania next weekend for round 2.
Incidentally, Dick finished in 4th position, followed by Peter Brock in 5th. Great performance from Pete to recover. And then Charlie O'Brien in car number 7 in 6th.
Well, Gary Wilkinson has got our race winner. We'll be crossing shortly to Gary with Robbie Francevic, who will have a grin from ear to ear. He's done it the tough way, but deserves the recognition he's about to receive. And a shake of hands there from Jim Richards. Well done. Excellent. Robbie Francevic takes round 1 today from the JPS duo of Jim Richards and, of course, Tony Longhurst. Let's go down to Gary Wilkinson.
Hey, what a big effort. Robbie Francevic, congratulations.
Well, I haven't seen you guys all weekend. But you're here talking to me now, and I hope you will for the rest of the rounds.
Well, this is right into the business, isn't it?
Certainly is.
Hey, you did a great job, but it was getting close at the finish.
Yeah, well, that's what you call a good judge race, isn't it?
Jim, you stuck with the 635. It was the right choice, almost brought it off.
Well, I was wondering there whether it was the right choice, but yes, no, it's probably a bit more development in the little 3 car, and it'll be the one to go for sure. But Robbie, congratulations to him. He drove a top race. Did exactly what I would have done.
Tony, great drive by you as well. You were giving Peter Brock and Dick a bit of hurry up there for a while.
Yeah, really had a good workout. I wore my back tyre out, and that caused my problems for the rest of the race.
OK, thanks, and congratulations again, Robbie Francevic. Hope you've enjoyed our telecast of the Better Breaks 100 from Amaroo Park.